Oh. Good afternoon to all of you. My guide, respected Professor S. D. Gupta sir, senior faculty members, junior faculty members, and my dear colleagues. The topic of my thesis was on comorbidities, quality of life, cost of treatment among patients of type 2 diabetes mellitus, a hospital-based case control study in Garhwal region of Uttarakhand. The presentation has been divided into following sections: introduction, review of literature, objective methodology, results, conclusion, recommendation, and references. So in the introduction, diabetes mellitus, all of us are well aware of this particular disease, diabetes mellitus, which refers to a group of common metabolic disorders, which is characterized by the clinical features of hyperglycemia. Number of diabetic patients are constantly on rise. 366 million were reported in 2011, and it has been expected to rise to 552 million by 2030. And patient with diabetes in due course of time with the increased duration suffers from comorbidities.
ये 366 इंडिया में है या वर्ल्ड में?
नहीं सर, वर्ल्ड में.
अच्छा, लिखा हुआ नहीं था.
Okay sir. Patients with diabetes suffer from comorbidity in due course of their illness, and these comorbid conditions may be associated with each other, either through cause-effect mechanism or may be coincidental. Existence of comorbidity is supposed to have a definitive negative impact on health of the patient and their quality of life, and also on the cost of treatment of all the associated conditions along with the diabetes. Of course, the quality of life is an important patient-reported outcome in any chronic disease, including diabetes also, and is often used as a measurement of outcome of treatment of the disease. In developed countries, approximately 80% of the Medicare spending is devoted to the patient, those who are having 4 or more than 4 chronic conditions, with cost increasing exponentially as the number of comorbidity increases. And the coverage status of medical insurance in India is grim, and the treatment of chronic disease usually on the outpatient basis, which is not covered under the insurance. And therefore, in terms of treatment seeking, patient has to seek for the treatment at various healthcare facilities, as well as it increase the cost of treatment. It is expected that it will increase the cost of the treatment incurred by the patient and his family. Therefore, the present study has been planned versus the comorbid condition, quality of life, direct costs involved in the treatment of patient with diabetes. This is a conceptual framework. Type 2 diabetes is a chronic metabolic disorder. In due course of time, it leads to occurrence of comorbidity, which compromises the quality of life and increases the cost of treatment. There is a gap in knowledge. Studies on association of comorbidity in patient of diabetes, quality of life, and cost of treatment in Garhwal division of Uttarakhand is lacking. What is the rationale behind the study? Knowledge about the comorbidity in patient of diabetes versus non-diabetes would help us in development of strategies for early detection and prevention of these comorbid conditions. This information would also be helpful to formulate region-specific programs related to the diabetes. Assessment of quality of life will help us to understand the impact of diabetes on patient and also the impact of any intervention which has been taken care of. The cost of treatment will provide as an index of out-of-pocket expenditure on the treatment of disease with an aim to inform the policymakers for appropriate modification in the cost of medicines. We'll look at the literature on this topic. The status of diabetes in world in 2000, India topped the world with the highest number of people with diabetes, followed by China and United States. Gupta has reported that approximately 71.4 million people are affected with the diabetes in the Southeast Asian region, with overall prevalence of 8.3%. Also, 1/5 of all the adults with diabetes in world were reported to live in Southeast Asian region. In 2013, International Diabetes Federation estimated 382 million people had diabetes worldwide, and by 2035 it has been expected to rise to 592 million. 80% of the diabetes live in low and middle income country, and more than 60% lives in Asia. What is the status of diabetes in India? India has the largest number of diabetes in the world. Highest prevalence in India is reported from the Ernakulam district of Kerala, and lowest is reported from the Kashmir Valley. Status of diabetes in Uttarakhand, Hassan et al. Reported 11% of the prevalence of diabetes in Hadwar district of Uttarakhand. What about the comorbidities? A hospital-based study conducted by Valent et al. In Italy identified 9 different isolated comorbidities. The combination of diabetes and essential hypertension was found to be the commonest. While in comorbidities among diabetes in India, a study conducted by Rashid et al. In Malappuram district of Kerala reported the prevalence of various comorbidities ranging from 2.3 to 89%. Gupta has reported that coronary heart disease and hypertension are the most frequently associated comorbidities with the diabetes. The reported prevalence of coexisting diabetes and hypertension was reported to be 15 to 20% in the population. Tuberculosis was also reported to be a common comorbidity among the diabetic patient, and the prevalence ranged from 2 to 6% among the diabetics. Visa was observed in Goa, in rural Goa area, that neuropathy is the most common comorbidity. 60% of the diabetic patients are reported to have this neuropathy, followed by CSD, cataract, retinopathy, etc. While literature on quality of life among diabetes in world, Ednes et al. Reported that comorbidity among the types, there is increase in number of the comorbidity, decrease in quality of life was reported. And they also reported that diabetic patient with comorbidity shows significantly lower mean difference in physical component summary as well as mental component summary. As per International Diabetes Federation, US account for roughly half of the total expenditure which is made on diabetes in world, while India is spending roughly 1% of the total global expenditure on diabetes. The medical costs incurred by a patient with diabetes are 2 to 5 fold higher than those incurred by the people without diabetes. Therefore, with this background, the objectives of my study were to estimate the proportion of comorbidities among patients of diabetes in a tertiary healthcare facility and to compare it with that of the matched non-diabetics who are serving as a control. To determine the association of various socio-demographic and clinical factors among cases and control, to assess as well as compare the quality of life scores among cases and control as well as among diabetics with or without comorbidities. To assess and compare the direct costs involved in the treatment of cases and control, and also to compare the costs among diabetics with or without comorbidities. To study the treatment seeking behavior among the diabetic patient. The research question were: what is the proportion of various comorbid condition among cases and controls? What is the difference in quality of life scores among the cases and control? How much direct cost is incurred in the management of cases as compared to that of control? And what is the treatment seeking behavior of diabetic patients? Hypothesis was: there is no difference in the proportion of comorbidities among cases and control. In other words, there is no difference in the quality of life scores between the cases and control. There is no difference in the quality of life score between diabetes with or without comorbidities. And there is no difference in the total direct cost among the cases and controls. Then there is no difference in the direct cost. There is no difference in the direct cost between the diabetes with or without comorbidities. Now, this particular study was conducted in a tertiary hospital of the Garhwal division of Uttarakhand. There is in the Garhwal division of Uttarakhand in the Hindi region only one tertiary care hospital exists. Design was hospital, it was a hospital-based case control study. Sample size taking 80% of the power at 95% confidence interval, taking one control for each case. The total sample size calculated was 384, 192 for cases and 192 for the controls. Certain operational definitions which were used in the study were as follows. Diabetic patient was defined as the patient who is currently on treatment for type 2 diabetes mellitus for more than 6 months, which is evident from medical records or by seeing the drugs for treatment of the diabetes and also correlating with the history provided by the patient. Then comorbidity, the term comorbidity implies both complication as well as any other disease of more than 15 days duration. Although in varieties of ways, comorbidity has been defined in different studies, which occur during the time since the diagnosis of diabetes has been made. Then further, hypertension was also defined in terms of that those who are having systolic BP of more than 140, diastolic BP of more than 90 with the standard measurement of blood pressure. You will say I can read all the operational definition. If everyone agrees, I can skip this one. operational definitions of various diseases.
Mhm.
So, what? Yeah.
You can skip it.
Skip. Similarly, all the diseases, standard definition was followed: COPD, asthma, tuberculosis, sensory motor neuropathy, CVA, stroke, cataract retinopathy, foot ulcer, fungal infection. Operational definition which we can use at the OPD itself. Okay, I have also taken the help of different departments in order to confirm the diagnosis which was reported by the patient. Joint pain, fracture, depression. Depression was assessed using a questionnaire, standard questionnaire PHQ-9, by which we measured the depression. Amnesia, again, operational definition was taken from the review of literature where they have asked two questions in order to confirm the amnesia. Do you have any difficulty learning new information which was regarded as an antedate amnesia, and do you have difficulty in remembering past event and previously familiar information, which was framed as retrograde amnesia. Then in the sampling procedure, selection of cases, type 2 diabetes cases were recruited consecutively from the medicine OPD of the hospital as they came for the treatment. Then inclusion criteria: diabetic patients who were greater than 30 years of age and were under treatment for the type 2 diabetes mellitus for more than 6 months. Willing to provide a written informed consent. Exclusion criteria for the cases was patient with serious comorbid condition who are requiring immediate hospitalization or having altered sensory. Then patients who are unable to give their informed consent were also excluded from the study. While selection of the control, as mentioned, one control was selected for each case. Inclusion criteria for the match control was that individual with similar age within 2 years back and of same gender. No history of diabetes mellitus, which is also confirmed among controls by testing RBS. They were recruited from the same hospital, and these hospital-based controls were attendant or accompanying person or other patient of acute disease attending the hospital. Exclusion criteria for the controls was a known previous history of diabetes at any point of time. They were excluded from the study, or those who are unable to give consent. Study tool: a pre-test and administration of questionnaire. A pre-tested and pre-designed questionnaire was used to collect the data on following variables: socio-demographic, clinical examination. Different questions were kept in this clinical examination to find out the comorbid condition. PHQ-9 was used for measuring depression. WHO breath questionnaire was used to measure the quality of life scores. Cost of treatment, again, it has got 4 sections, which I will discuss later on. Treatment seeking behavior. Pilot testing of questionnaire was done to assess the completeness of the questionnaire in obtaining the responses. Bit about the WHO breath questionnaire. WHO breath questionnaire is a questionnaire which is used to measure the quality of life scores. Hindi version of this breath questionnaire was used in my study, and it's a 26-item specific instrument for measuring quality of life, and it covers or gives the quality of life scores in 4 domains: physical, psychological, social, and environmental. These all are the number of question numbers which are in the standard questionnaire. These are the number of questions, and each question is measured on Likert scale, ranging from 1 to 5. With 1 is poorest response, 5 is excellent response. Duration: it took around 9 months to collect the data. Confidentiality and quality control: written informed consent from all the participants was obtained prior to commencement of the interview. Data was collected by the same investigator to overcome the interview bias. Permission to conduct the study was taken from Institutional Review Board at IHMR University, as well as Ethics Committee of Current Institute, from the Srinagar Institute, PCSG Institute, Srinagar, Garhwal. Permission was also obtained from the WHO office to use the breath questionnaire for measuring the quality of life. The analysis plan: independent variables which were taken in the study were socio-demographic variables, where I took age, gender, marital status, socio-economic status, occupation, religion, family history, family size. Addiction history was collected also on the use of tobacco and use of alcohol, and duration of diabetes, since how long patient is suffering from the diabetes. While the outcome variable were collected in the 4 broad aspects: proportion of comorbid condition, measurement of quality of life, cost incurred in the management, and their treatment seeking behavior. In the comorbidity of self-reported disease, information was obtained on self-reported disease like hypertension, stroke, renal disease, arthritis, etc. Physical parameters such as height, weight, BP was also collected and variables related to direct cost. Direct cost was in fact measured in four again component: cost on the consultation, cost on the medicine, cost on consultation, travel, other cost, which comes in other cost, and one more cost, laboratory test, on the laboratory test. Health seeking behavior data was collected on type of healthcare practitioner visited during the past 6 months. Total number of visits performed in the past 6 months, use of alternative therapies such as Ayurveda, naturopathy, herbal, etc. The data was statistical analysis. The data was entered in Microsoft Excel and was analyzed using SPSS software version 23. The association between the proportion was calculated using chi-square test and between means independent details. Odds ratio was calculated to estimate the strength of association, and the p-value of less than 0.05 was considered significant. ANOVA was used to test association between means among more than 3 groups. And interaction between dependent and independent variable was examined using multiple linear regression analysis model. Coming on to the results. This table shows the socio-demographic characteristics of cases and controls. This was a MASH case control study. No significant difference was reported with respect to age, gender, marital status between the cases and controls. However, the mean age reported among the cases was 56.8 years, while among control it was 56.4 years. Also, no significant difference was reported in between the cases and control with respect to religion, with respect to caste, and with respect to educational status. There was significant difference in between the cases and control reported with respect to occupation, income, socioeconomic status, and family history of diabetes. No significant difference was reported once again in between the average family size between the cases and control. Family history of diabetes was reported roughly in half of the cases, less than half of the cases. This figure shows the duration-wise distribution of the type 2 diabetes mellitus. Most of the patients, roughly again, half of the patients were suffering from the diabetes for less than 5 years, while 11.8 were reported to have diabetes greater than 15 years. With respect to diagnosis of the type 2 diabetes mellitus, 65.1% were having some symptom on the basis of which diagnosis of diabetes was made, while 34.9% were diagnosed accidentally, asymptomatically. The most common presenting feature among the diabetes because of which they visited doctor was non-healing ulcer or wound in our study. Roughly 36.4% were reported to have this feature, followed by polyuria, 24.1%. First degree relation was found to be most common with respect to the family history among the diabetes. In the family history of diabetes, in my study, in this particular study, brother was found to be most common relation, followed by mother. Thereafter, daughter, father, etc. were found to as a relationship among the type 2 diabetes mellitus with respect to the family history. This is the first objective of my study, comorbidities, to measure the proportion of comorbidities. Though the different comorbidities, data on different comorbidities was collected, but it was divided on the system-wise basis, like in nervous system, how many different comorbidities are there, what is the percentage, similarly CVS, similarly dermatologic, etc. etc. This figure is showing individual comorbidities. Hypertension was reported to be the most common comorbidity. 45.6% of the cases reported hypertension in the present study. While among the control, it is a cataract, which is the most common. Cataract was found to be the most common comorbidity among controls. From this neuropathy was another disease which was very commonly reported among the cases. Rest all were more or less around the 5%, the below one, which has been shown in the figure. This figure shows the percentage distribution of. Sir,
What do you see in this hypertension, neuropathy, and cardiovascular disease? 15.4%. Though you also saw osteoarthritis as comorbid, but this is more incidental rather than associated with diabetes. So we need to really look at another important thing that we have observed is these concerns, sexual problems, and depression. These are very common, and then transient ischemic attacks. So diabetes as such is not a drug disease, but the comorbidities kill. So this depression and sexual problems or impotence, these are very common but not reported. Unless specifically studied. So this is what, so we focus on hypertension. As I want to also say that cardiovascular diseases as well as others, depression, and also the transient ischemia are also very important.
this figure shows the percentage distribution of development of comorbid after the onset of diabetes. This was based on the patient's report. Okay. All the chronic kidney disease cases were reported by the patient to be developed after diabetes. 100%, all the patients. Then from neuropathy onwards, neuropathy, if you look at upward, neuropathy, burning, pain and feet, sleep disorder, sexual problem, as sir has mentioned rightly, sexual problem, 80, almost 90% of the patients of diabetes reported sexual problem occurred after diabetes.
So do you take the OPDs of all the departments?
Yes, sir, medicine OPD.
Only medicine.
Medicine OPD, but most of the time, for all these disorder, patient comes to the medicine OPD.
Sexual related problems, they are also coming to that department and they are going to any
Who?
for sexual, you find
Yes,
out.
sexual were coming to the psychiatry department as well as medicine OPD department. Most of the time, medicine OPD department.
Not going to gynec department.
In fact, when patient is coming to the medicine OPD, then I was asking, do you have sexual problem? So in this way, I'm not going particularly to the psychiatry department to find out motto was to first of all catch the diabetic patient and then ask the question whether do they have sexual problem.
The relevance of this figure is this. You will see that diabetes preceded all these comorbidities. The remaining were before diabetes.
Yes, sir.
If you minus that from the observed, so you will say that, and I believe, I have not checked, you have also not checked, that the difference between the two
In those reported
and
minus.
I believe they should be similar. I have to check the data. So that background illnesses, some of them were already there before diabetes. This tells us
Yes, sir.
they developed after developing diabetes. So we can fairly, probably establish this, that they were associated with diabetes. There was no way to exclude or to say that these were not associated with diabetes. We are assuming that it's a comorbid condition, and it also matches with the literature, like chronic kidney disease. This is on rise in India, in world over. So this highlights a very important issue now coming up in this country. Because once you have chronic kidney disease, what is the alternative we have? We have no alternative. Either you go for periodic dialysis,
Dialysis.
maybe weekly or twice weekly or whatsoever. Or finally you go for transplant. Kidney transplant technology in India, how much it is developed. Everybody is not that lucky or fortunate like Sushma Swaraj or Jetli, where they had successful transplants. But generally, this infection gets over.
Finding out the donors.
Donors is very difficult, and the organ transplant laws are very organ donation. That बहुत complex. It's not easy to really get the donor. And then all these, if you look at neuropathy, very common neuropathy. Why I am saying all this? Just for education of everybody.
Sir.
That the good care during diabetes is very important. Because once you develop neuropathy, very difficult to reverse it. And the pain that you have, it's a pain of health. No way this pain goes up. I don't know how much Bola has gone into literature in pain management and diabetes. But it was terrible. No way to treat this pain. So that another important thing people should know is notice this, not from top to bottom, important things like what we are facing today, chronic diseases, kidney, and then you see with this neuropathies, and then chronic, what is this? Which one's arthritis, but tuberculosis, and then cerebral hemorrhages, transitional ischemia, cardiovascular disease. Barely 3/4 of the patients have this. So that's why diabetes is a very difficult condition. If not managed well, it can lead to any damage. So that's why we did this analysis. How many comorbid conditions occurred after diabetes to establish? Because if you see the previous picture for the duration of diabetes, you will see different. But you look at only those who are diabetics or developed comorbidities, you will find that majority of the cases, you see all those chronic diseases today. Diabetes is one of the contributors. And this tuberculosis, this MDR today we are facing, this drug resistance. You see 75% of the diabetic patients have tuberculosis associated with that. It's a very common feature. And treating tuberculosis with among diabetics is not easy. So this is a very significant observation that you are making in this.
With respect to sir, experiences which were shared by the patient now, I was also surprised. Most of them told me कि सर मेरा बुढ़ापा कम से कम मुझे ऐसा लगता है 10 साल पहले आ गया. जो हमारे दादा नानी वगैरह कहते थे वो हमें लगता है अभी हम सब फील कर रहे हैं. Although I cannot feel exactly, but at least I can feel by their experience. As I said, na, neuropathy, pain, how frightening pain was reported by them. Terrible था. Amputation तो हमारे को नहीं मिला, but they were telling because गांव के थे.
Third from the bottom. If you look at peripheral arterial disease, this is the precondition for amputation. If this arterial disease does not occur, you don't have to go for amputation. But if this PAD occurs, then it's very likely you may land up with amputation of fingers, especially of foot. Anybody has that?
This 100% means 100%.
Everybody
of
Means 4 cases were reported of the CKD and all reported that they have developed this condition
All
only
have-
after diabetes.
What will be fungal infection? What do you observe like
What's the definition? Fungal infection.
like where in which particular portion like fungal infection?
Fungal infection in any part of body, usually in the foot or in the armpits. or on the hand also. We found few cases on the
This
hand.
study has been done in the E regions, where wounds and hygiene, these types of problems because of the frequent trauma. So non-healing ulcer because of, so the wounds will occur, but they will not heal.
So that is why it is there.
Well, I have a question. It's very interesting study study. Now, with these two graphs, I can easily understand. Yes, there is which the hypothesis which you want to test, that the appearance of comorbidity in control and cases. With this graph, I can see the difference, but how do you test that they are significantly at least? And which are the prominent comorbidities?
So that will come in the next slide. This is only showing among the
This is
cases.
not comparing the two.
This is just for the
post
case.
diabetes diagnosis.
Previously compared to the previous graph, and then
Sir,
here we go.
that is also just representing the figure in the form of percentage. I mean, table where comparison has been made to the test, that will come next.
Because that would be very interesting, because here, they just give you the pattern.
Yes, this is just pattern.
Yeah,
I have completed a figure first and then I thought, I'll keep the tables.
yeah, I'm observing very.
But chronic, the first, chronic kidney disease is not there in the first slide. In this slide. Okay.
Percentage was quite less, but yes, it was.
It was only 4 cases.
4 cases out of 190.
But you said 100%.
Sir, this 100, I mean, all the 4 cases reported that they have developed CKD after diabetes.
Of the total CKD, 4, and incidentally, all the 4 are developed after
Diabetes.
But there is one control also in your previous slide.
In previous slide, I have compared it with the control, but this.
That means that person must not be having diabetes.
Yeah.
CKD can occur to anybody, but it is very commonly associated with untreated diabetes.
नहीं यहाँ जैसे 100% का है
चार में से
इसमें कंट्रोल से कंपैरिजन नहीं किया सर। इसमें हमने control
इसमें
से
जाके
नहीं
जो
किया।
4 थे सभी के डायबिटीज थे और वहाँ बिना डायबिटीज
नहीं, वो ये कह रहा आफ्टर डायबिटीज डेवलप करने के बाद, डायबिटीज होने के बाद वो बता रहा था।
ये ग्राफ सर केवल केसेस के लिए।
हाँ,
Cases का है।
exactly. ये केवल केसेस के लिए।
कंट्रोल का डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन नहीं है सर।
कंट्रोल का टॉपिक केस, ये तो मैं अज्यूम कर रहा हूँ
जी।
कि 100 में से अगर 20 ये घटा दे आप मान लीजिए तो नेक्स्ट है क्या है
93.3 अगर
93
100 में से
इसको माइनस करते हैं हम तो ये आएगा
7.7
6.7 आई बिलीव कि फंगल इन्फेक्शंस कंट्रोल में होंगी। एक बार चेक करके देखो, पलट के देखो।
कंट्रोल का नहीं
नहीं, ये कंट्रोल का नहीं है, मैं कह रहा हूँ बैकग्राउंड इलनेस जो है ना 6.7%।
जैसे उधर किडनी डिजीज में एक कंट्रोल में आया इसका मतलब एक ऐसा जिसके डायबिटीज नहीं होता है ना, लेकिन यहाँ 100% पे रहेगा सभी के।
नहीं सर, ये तो केवल
वो कह रहा है डायबिटीज होने के बाद।
अभी सर नेक्स्ट वाला आपको ना टेबल से क्लियर हो जाएगा। दिस इज सिस्टमाइज, ये वाले से नहीं और आगे वाले से होगा। सिस्टमाइज डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ कोमॉर्बिडिटीज अमंग पेशेंट ऑफ डायबिटीज। ये केवल जो ये फिगर दिखा है, आई मीन उसी का नंबर के फॉर्म में प्रेजेंटेशन है सर। जैसे कार्डियोवैस्कुलर सिस्टम, टोटल नंबर ऑफ डायबिटिक केसेस विद वेरियस कोमॉर्बिडिटी इन द कार्डियोवैस्कुलर सिस्टम 65.1% of the diabetics have some kind of the cardiovascular system disease. Similarly, 65.1% comorbidities with respect to nervous system was reported among the diabetics, but respiratory system 7.1. And this is the individual distribution, all the diseases which were collected in the cardiovascular system: hypertension, cardiovascular disease, peripheral arterial disease. These all are the number of patients who reported hypertension, cardiovascular, peripheral artery disease among the diabetic patients. And this is the number, as I was just mentioning, like here in the chronic kidney disease, 4 patients among the diabetes reported chronic kidney disease, and all the 4 developed this particular disease, reported to be developed this particular disease after diabetes. तो वो 100% सर वो फिगर में शो कर रहा है, ठीक है सर. Among the tuberculosis, 75%. This is, 75%, 3 out of 4. 3 out of 4 have developed tuberculosis after diabetes. In the renal system, chronic kidney disease, ophthalmic system, cataract and retinopathy or macular edema were the commonly reported problems, and 27.2% of the diabetics reported this retinopathy, 24.6 was reported among the reported cataract, and approximately 70% of these ophthalmic diseases were reported to develop after diabetes. Similarly, in the orthopedics, 55.9% of the patients of diabetics developed or reported some kind of the orthopedic problem, back pain, chronic rheumatoid arthritis, osteoarthritis, fractures, etc. Similarly, in the skin disease, roughly less than 50% reported some kind of the dermatologic problem, either in the form of fungal infection, burning sensation in feet, or foot ulcer, frequent infection, etc.
Can we stop here because this is very important here. See, this analysis is based on the 95 days of control
Cases, 195 cases. Yes, sir.
So now, this, the column 2 and 3, we were saying, this is the, among my cases, what is the proportion has this problem? Fungal infections, we were saying that it's 7.7%.
Sir.
Right? And also you are saying that 93% develop these fungal infections after delivery, right?
Yes.
Now, how do you measure? This is based on perception, because when you say the cases mean the person is already has diabetes. So are you going backward to know that the particular problem when it occurs? How do you measure or ascertain this information?
So this was collected on the basis of question.
I mean that now right now I'm a diabetic and you are asking questions.
No, I'll answer this question. This, the eligibility criteria for selection of the cases was cases diagnosed within last 6 months. Right? Why we kept 6 months? We could have kept 5 years as well. This is just to really look at control for the recall biases.
Yes.
About comorbid conditions. Because होता रहता है कुछ, तो ये मालूम नहीं पड़ सकता कि ये डायबिटीज से एसोसिएटेड, इसलिए we kept that, therefore we kept eligibility criteria narrow. Within last 6 months जिनको diagnose हुआ, ताकि उसमें recall की problem नहीं हो कि मुझे comorbid पहले से तक ठीक है, कुछ भी कह सकता है. We reduced it. That's the reason. So we have to go back into the eligibility criteria that at least having 6 months. We did not take cases of diabetes which were diagnosed 6 months ago.
No, but one of the institutions previously have shown that
Just to look for
That was
recall
for
errors.
how long they are suffering from that. Like on an average age was 56. On an average,
We could keep 7 months, but there has to be some logic.
no,
So you can have any cutoff. You could have 3 months, you could have 1 month.
yeah, 6
But
months.
then 1 month, you could have taken two years to collect this number of cases.
6 months is justifiable because we have to see how long we can continue with this time. The time duration is very important. But somewhere you have shown the distribution previously, where you are showing the diabetes with more than 5 years, 5 to 10 years.
he said that was the duration of diabetes. That figure was showing duration of the diabetes. I mean,
Yeah, I got it.
how many of them were suffering for past 5 years? How many have are suffering since 15 years? So in that
ये
percent,
कह रहे हैं कि 6 महीने में जो रिपोर्ट हुई.
This one, yeah. you-
चलो आगे.
26.2% reported some kind of dental problem. Sexual problem was reported among 13.8. And as I shown in the previous figure also, 88.9% of all those who have sexual problem, they reported developing this sexual problem after
We are
that.
just trying to explore that, is it associated with that?
Examination just waiting for.
Sir, they were clearly actually telling me, sir, ये diabetes के बाद हो रहा है." Why?
आगे
This table shows the risk of comorbidities of cardiovascular system among cases and controls. So, if you compare the cases with the control, with respect to different comorbidities of the cardiovascular system, all the comorbidities were significantly reported to be higher among cases as compared to that of the control, with the odds ratio ranging from 3.7 to 11.5. Overall, the cardiovascular comorbidities were reported to be 3.9 times higher among cases as compared to that of control. Peripheral arterial disease was reported to be 11.5 times higher among the cases as compared to that of control. This is comparison of the comorbidities of nervous system. Again, in the nervous system also, all the diseases were reported to be significantly higher among the cases as compared to controls, and with the odds ratio range from 3.5 to 8.6. On an average, overall, the comorbidities from nervous system reported to be 6.9 times higher among the cases as compared to that.
हेडेक ICD-10 में डिजीज की तरह से क्लासिफाई हुआ है
नहीं sir.
हेडेक व्हाई दे हैव केप्ट इट
Sir, because patient were reporting it.
मेरा ये क्वेश्चन था सर।
Is it ICD-10?
नहीं sir.
Why you have kept it? If it is not characterized as a disease, it is a symptom, it is not a disease.
Sir.
But neuropathy, yes, it is. Transient TIA, yes, it is. So headache cannot be considered as disease. It is a symptom of some disease. Please remove it.
Ma'am.
No headache तो सभी के very knowledge class.
While in the comparison of comorbidity of renal system among cases and control, chronic kidney disease was reported twice as compared to that of control. However, the difference was not found to be significant among cases and control. Overall, also no significant difference in the comorbidities from renal system was reported within the cases.
You were asking 100% CKD. Now it comes out to make it is not significant.
So number 4 है सर।
It is a small number.
Very small. That's why.
अगर ये sufficient होता तो ठीक आता।
First we have to have a table giving the hand distribution, qualify whether you need to do distribution.
And then another important thing is how do you define CKD? What is the criteria you have used for CKD?
Sir, medical record के through हमने।
हाँ वही तो मैं कह रहा हूँ ना। तो अगर CKD को हम define करते होते तो भी बहुत कम केसेस हैं। और उसमें अगर
प्रोटीन भी अगर लेने तो बहुत ज़्यादा।
यूरिनरी प्रोटीन क्रिएटिनिन रेशो करते हैं या हम यूरिनरी माइक्रो एल्बुमिन करते हैं तो आप CKD कह सकते हैं तो बहुत से केसेस में मिस हुए हैं।
सर कॉस्ट की वजह से।
A lot of cases that have been missed CKD cases or early stages of CKD have been missed because we deliberately did not diagnose. It is reported in the records of the hospital.
Just because of cost purpose, sir.
No problem. मैं तो बता रहा हूँ. We need to in fact explain these things in our discussion part.
I also heard that apart from cataract and retinopathy, this glaucoma is also associated with diabetes.
I don't know whether glaucoma is associated.
Retinopathy can.
Retinopathy
definitely.
पर मैं अपना पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस नहीं यूज करता when I studied it that glaucoma is not necessarily associated with the blindness that occurs in diabetes patients is because of retinopathy.
Is there retinopathy?
Yes, that's fine. This table is showing the comparison of the cases and control with respect of. ऐसा
सिग्निफिकेंट नहीं आया क्या अटैक?
नहीं सर, सिग्निफिकेंट नहीं। उनको मतलब जब एज मैच करा करके देखा तो कंट्रोल
और रेटिनोपैथी तो एक मेजर है, तुमने इसको कह दिया कि अदर्स स्पेसिफिक। राइट, मिस्टर रेटिनोपैथी, व्हाई अदर्स?
सर
इट्स अ मेजर कोमॉर्बिड,
वो सिग्निफिकेंट
सिग्निफिकेंट भी।
सर रेटिनोपैथी का जब अलग से बनाया था ना, तो वो नंबर्स कम थे, तो कह रहे थे कि मर्ज कर दो उसको, विजुअल एक्यूटी रखा था, तो ताकि इसको अंडर्स कर दो, मर्ज कर दो, तो दैट्स व्हाई इट वाज क्लियर करो। Our overall the proportion of comorbidity with respect,
तो सर बोल रहे हैं रेटिनोपैथी के कितने केसेस?
सर थे करीब अराउंड एग्जैक्ट यानी 10 के अराउंड थे केसेस में।
4 को अलग किया हुआ।
नहीं सर, सीकेडी को इसलिए अलग किया बिकॉज नेफ्रोपैथी इज रिपोर्टेड एज ए, अगर हम नहीं अगर रिपोर्ट करते ना तो डेफिनेटली ऑडियंस में से ही कोई कहता है तुमने नेफ्रोपैथी नहीं बोला, व्हिच इज अ कॉमन कॉम्प्लिकेशन।
अदर्स से निकाल के
तो इसीलिए अदर्स में सर बाकी में हमने नहीं डिफाइन किया, पर रेटिनोपैथी जरूर लिख दिया कि
रेटिनोपैथी को आप अलग से
ठीक है
इसके अदर्स को लेकर, क्योंकि विजुअल इम्पेयरमेंट इज नॉट नेसेसरी बिकॉज़ ऑफ द डायबिटीज, दैट्स व्हाई। सो ओनली कीप रेटिनो।
ठीक है सर।
लेकिन अदर्स में रेटिनोपैथी के अलावा बहुत सारे केसेस हैं, वो भी एनालाइज करने से
जो सिग्निफिकेंट जो
रिलेटेड
डायबिटीज से एसोसिएटेड हो रहे हैं।
ग्लूकोमा वैसे सर आया नहीं था हमारे उसमें, इसमें नहीं केसेस।
वो पता भी नहीं पड़ता, जैसे हेडेक के केसेस दिखाए ना उसमें, हो सकता है वो ग्लूकोमा भी हो, किसी ने नापा ही नहीं होगा। इट्स क्वाइट पॉसिबल कि जो हेडेक के केसेस हैं उनका एक ग्लूकोमा भी हो।
नहीं, I have taken the नहीं, I have learned to inspect to the retinoscope by an ophthalmologist, और जिसमें वो मिल रहा था तो वो मैं कंफर्म करा रहा था ophthalmologist। Comorbidities of dermatologic system, again with respect to various diseases in the dermatology, all were found to be significantly higher among the cases as compared to control. Overall, 5.3 times higher risk of dermatologic system comorbidities among cases was reported as compared to controls.
ये बर्निंग सेंसेशन तो पेरिफेरल न्यूरोपैथी का ही साइन है।
Yes sir. बाद में पता लगा।
बताइए इसमें।
तब मैं एनालिसिस इतनी सारी करती हूँ, मैं डालूंगा।
अब गाइड को तो धीरे-धीरे ध्यान आता है, लोगों का एक बार को जरूर ध्यान नहीं आता, क्योंकि ये तो पेरिफेरल न्यूरोपैथी का ही साइन हो सकता है।
सर वो बाद में ध्यान भी उसमें एनालिसिस चेंज हो गया, मैं कर दूंगा।
नहीं देखते हैं उसको दोबारा।
While comparing the comorbidities of musculoskeletal system within cases and control, again, osteoarthritis, back pain, lumbar spondylitis, chronic rheumatoid arthritis, all these are found to be significantly higher among the cases as compared to control. Overall, 2.5 times higher musculoskeletal disorders are reported among cases.
rheumatoid arthritis का डायबिटीज से क्या?
सर निकल के मतलब वैसे लिटरेचर में तो ऐसा कुछ मतलब मेंशन नहीं है उसका, rheumatoid arthritis उनको ज्यादा पाई जाती है, ऐसा मेंशन नहीं है, बट हमारे स्टडी में
होता है cause and effect association, वो comorbidity decide करने का criteria. So the purpose of doing analysis before and after diabetes was this, to establish this, that there will be a possible association of another independent disease, comorbid, right? But you know what you cannot explain biologically. You cannot explain this rheumatoid arthritis biologically because there is a specific factor. The causation is already known, and diabetes doesn't cause any autoimmune disease, right? So this rheumatoid arthritis cannot be said to be associated. So it is a coincidental morbidity.
Yes.
Rather, comorbidity. It's a coincidental morbidity. Now, this is how why. Osteoarthritis we can understand. There may be osteoporosis, Rheumatoid is very specific. As I understand, rheumatoid is very specific for certain antigens. This happens. ये पता है RF है.
So this table shows a comorbid psychiatric system between cases and control. Depression was significantly reported to be higher, 3.2 times higher. Depression was reported among cases as compared to control, and others also were found to be significantly higher among the cases as compared to control. Then, in the total, overall 2.7 times higher comorbidities related to psychiatric system was reported among cases as compared to controls. This was my, first objective. Second objective was to measure the quality of life scores.
Excuse me. Tuberculosis? Tuberculosis?
Sir, respiratory system. Defined in the respiratory system. It was not found to be significantly higher among cases because control में भी मिल गया था हमारे को 2 या 3 cases. So that's why it was not reported in this particular. Otherwise, with respect to review of literature, it is reported to be, occurring after the diabetes, significantly higher among the in other case control studies. 1 or 2 case control have been conducted in Bangladesh. They reported significantly higher of occurrence of tuberculosis among cases. हमारे इसमें नहीं मिला वैसे से.
Dr. Bora, just is a very stupid question from my understanding. See, like here you try to see the differences, keeping this comorbidity in mind. But are you able to control, because as far as if you just same sampling design, if you just change the geographical area. For example, when you study say in a more healing, suppose we do in a coastal area. With the same design will also be effective there without keeping control.
No,
of
sir. That is limitation of my study.
Pardon?
That is, I have kept in limitation of my study.
So that's why, so maybe may not occur, but in some area, the sir is saying that it's a coexisting morbidity, not exactly the or occurrent coincident morbidity. Maybe that could be the reason or that if you, that's why other studies say, suppose if I have to compare these results with the results of other study in this country, other part of the country or the different continental also, how do I standardize and compare? Or just this study simply tells me what's happening in the Galwa region, or if I have to use this information for intervention, how, because I have to think for India country as a whole, how can I use this study to make any policy intervention something? How do we control? Because there's a part of discussion implementation can tell it, but somewhere we need to understand how the study design can take care of when we compare.
So definitely, I agree with the point that there is external validity limitation with the study. But as per the particularly tuberculosis disease, I can say definitely yes, tuberculosis is very prevalent in my state, in Uttarakhand. So many people are there. But by chance, I can say just only by chance that the difference has not been observed. Just by chance.
That's fine. That's how do you.
But yes, of course, prevalence of tuberculosis is very high in our state also. And moreover, smoking is also very prevalent. So I cannot deny that tuberculosis is not. And definitely, yes, and if you conduct the study in coastal area, chances are there that results may differ from our study. But it is at least, because in recommendation I have written that for the state authorities, at least this study would help us in development of the strategies for the early control of the comorbidities.
Kerala, if you consider that as coastal state, they showed very high prevalence of diabetes.
Yeah, one of the district.
So the cause of diabetes, the causal factors of diabetes may be different. or more permanent. It's quite possible. But he is not showing us determinants of diabetes. He is talking about comorbid conditions. So his objective was not to find the determinant. He just wanted to look at. But definitely, since he has socioeconomic data and age and all that, maybe at some point of time, we can look at the predictors of comorbidity in diabetes. In the sense like age could be in Uttarakhand, the distances are problems, so the distance to the facility, treatment delay, all that could be, and then the socio-economic status, poverty. These could be the factors which may have, which may affect the risk of developing comorbidities or inadequate treatment. So these 5-6 factors could be used to look at the risk of comorbidities. So, in a nutshell, I would say identify 5 or 6 key morbid conditions, comorbid conditions, and take them as yes and no, and put these 5-6 independent factors, look at the risk of each of them. It will be what Dheeraj is asking for. Have you controlled for? So the only way, though he has done multiple linear regression.
Get for 5-6 diseases.
That has to be seen.
So I have one question just for my knowledge. This depression is directly related to diabetes or it is due to the higher proportion of people with hypertension?
No, sir. Direct. As per review of literature, it has been associated directly with the diabetes. As per review literature, other studies have also been conducted and they say it is nowadays directly related with diabetes. Hypertension, depression is being found to be associated.
I will do a simple question. Now, if you think this study design case control, so if we do literature review, or when we think of applying a particular study design to a particular question, so case control study answer what type of case question? Case control study, as per my knowledge, here Mangal sir can add, as per my knowledge, case control study is applied to see the cause of the means outcome. We know outcome already, and now we try to see what are the causes which is means influencing. So if our objective is to only know the comorbidity and comparing where it is more or less, can we require this?
This is not a case control study. This is case control analysis.
So only case control analysis is not case control study design.
Design is process.
Design is process.
सर जो आप रिस्क फैक्टर कह रहे हैं ना, रिस्क फैक्टर का एसोसिएशन देखते हैं केस कंट्रोल स्टडी में, हियर कोमॉर्बिडिटीज आर बीइंग टेकन एज ए रिस्क इन फैक्ट कि कोमॉर्बिडिटी का रिस्क कितना है, क्या है अमंग द डायबिटीज. सो इन फैक्ट रिस्क फैक्टर और कोमॉर्बिडिटीज आर बीइंग टेकन एज ए क्वेश्चन.
You have mentioned in study design cross sectional or case control?
Case control.
Sir, actually,
No, it is not.
here it is a case control design. Why we have selected diabetes and non-diabetes. So among the diabetes, whatever the comorbidity, these are all the risks for the diabetic person. So from the outcome to
In a way, it is basically we are searching for cause. What are the causes which is developing this diabetes?
So in that case, they must have taken case control for each of the comorbidities and then see whether
Exactly,
hypertension was
exactly, for
there.
that.
Then it could have been case control study. But right now it is case control and this is happening.
Yeah, actually, if I'm beginning when I was,
Yeah. Analytical process.
when was
Definitely.
education, you rightly defined the definition of your dependent variable.
SD service.
And these are I
Sir.
we'll discuss this little later.
Okay, so please.
So the second primary objective was to measure the quality of life. This table shows the system-wise quality of life score. System-wise quality of life score between the baseline and control. Except for the few systems, such as nervous system, psychiatric system, and renal system. Rest all other systems were having significantly lower quality of life scores as compared to that of the controls. The lowest quality of life score was reported for the patients who were having psychiatric coma. While among the controls, it was reported lowest for the nervous system comorbidity. As I already mentioned in the methodology that the quality of life score are being measured in the four domains: physical, psychological, social, and environmental. So, except for again social relationship, physical, psychological, environmental, and also overall were significantly lower among the cases as compared to that of the controls. When we compare the total quality of life scores among cases and control with respect to increasing number of comorbidity, like no comorbidity, one comorbidity, two or three or more comorbidities, then also there has been decrease in the quality of life score with increasing number of comorbidities. However, the difference was not found to be significant in between the cases and controls. When we compare the physical domains of quality of life scores with respect to number of comorbidities, again, decrease was reported in both cases and control, but the difference was not found to be significant. While in the psychological domain of the quality of life score in two comorbidities, there was significant difference in the quality of life scores. However, rest of the number of comorbidities did not show significant difference in the quality of life score among the cases and controls. Similarly, in the social domain and environmental domain also, no significant difference in the quality of life scores with respect to number of comorbidities. When we applied ANOVA among the diabetic patients with different number of comorbidities, all the domains along with the total scores were found to be significantly lower with increasing number of the comorbidities. While among the controls, on applying ANOVA, except for physical, none of this domain of quality of life score shows significant differences with increasing number of the comorbidities. On applying regression analysis for the quality of life among patients, three comorbidities: income, who are having greater than 15,000, type of family, alcohol use. These were the predictors which were having significant contribution in the estimation of prediction of the quality of life scores. With the three comorbidities is decreasing the quality of life score by 9.5 units. Income, those who are having greater than 15,000 income per month, they were having 5.3 unit of better quality of life score by 5.3 unit. Similarly, type of family, alcohol use of alcohol was here the reference was use of alcohol. So those who do not use, they were having 2.4 times better quality of life as compared to those who were users.
Non-users. Non-users had better quality.
Yes, sir. Non-user were having better. Third primary objective was estimation of the direct cost. Direct cost was, as mentioned, was measured in four components: medical consultation, medication, laboratory test, and any other which included travel cost and dietary cost. If we compare in direct cost between the cases and control, in all the four components, significant higher cost was or direct expenditure was reported among cases as compared to control. The overall cost, overall direct, this cost was measured for the past 6 months. So in the past 6 months, 3,669 rupees 70 paisa was the expenditure which was made by diabetic patient, as compared to that of the 972 rupees among the control non-diabetics, and was found to be similar.
So for even cases, it is.
The
For
person-
even control, the cost of treatment, whatever, can go back. to
Because controls were also having certain comorbidities, no? They
No,
were
no, can you go back that, oh yes, that's
this
it.
one.
The cost of total cost,
Total cost was this
Ah, yeah, exactly.
3,669. This was 970. Roughly, 150 rupees per month was spent by them. Expenditure was there, while here around 640 rupees.
All the cost, standard deviation cost is much
Yes,
higher
ma'am.
than the main one.
Yes. Again, if I go into the review literature, some studies have reported like this. Although it was found to be higher, I have also calculated with respect to median. So I mean, it all depends. But median के respect में, if I have kept the results, आ रहे थे significant, सब सही था, but still I found to be this results better as compared. I'll show you the median one also. I have kept in the other folders. सर उसमें ना ऐसा करके आ रहा था 200 रुपीज 50 रुपीज इस टाइप का मतलब आ रहा था, तो वो हमने रखा नहीं. मैंने वो भेजे हैं आपको रिजल्ट उस फॉर्म में भी. अगर आप कहेंगे तो मैं वैसा रख दूंगा मीडियम. बट ये एक जस्टिफाइड लग रहा था, लाइक 640 मतलब लग रहा है. हाँ ओके सर, बट स्टैटिस्टिकल पॉइंट ऑफ सर सर आई एग्री विद यू.
Then you are using this mean plus minus one standard deviation. And if you want meaningful inference from this calculation, so basic criteria is that your data should follow normal distribution. Then you can think of applying this other. If your data is not normally distributed
If median is not giving good results,
then
then yes, the problem
you
is
are getting this.
सर मीडियम लगा.
Ola is a bit excited. So he calculated the standard deviation also. But
But-
when you look at the cost data, cost studies, they generally don't give standard deviation.
Yes, exactly.
The reason is there are high variations. Therefore, they don't give and they don't bother to compare as well. They simply give one figure, that is 6,000 or 3,669 per month is the expenditure among diabetic patients. They don't try to compare because it is such a high variable. Incidentally, still you have a significant difference. That is something else. But to me, this the difference looks obvious. But people have been very careful in giving a standard deviation because they also observed high variable.
सर इवन जो आप कह रहे हैं ना सर, बीएमसी में आर्टिकल छपा हुआ मैं लेके आया था स्पेशली दिखाने के लिए, उसमें भी स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन ज्यादा दिखा रहा है. एग्जैक्टली इसी तरीके का, मतलब डॉलर्स में उसने दिखाया तो उसमें फिगर कम है बट उससे ज्यादा है. जो एवरेज निकाला है $15 अगर निकाला है तो उसमें उसका जो स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन है 25 के अराउंड. इस तरीके से लिखा है कि बीएमसी में पब्लिश है.
deviation is 563.
हाँ, वो तो
बिकॉज सर कुछ ने बिल्कुल खर्चा नहीं किया, उनका कुछ खर्चा ही नहीं हुआ, कोई इनको कोमॉर्बिड, बट किसी को इतनी ज्यादा कोमॉर्बिड कंडीशन थी उसके में एक्सपेंडिचर हाई हो गया, तो इसलिए वेरिएबिलिटी
भाई
बहुत
लोगों को
ज्यादा
डायबिटीज नहीं है पर हार्ट डिजीज है.
बिल्कुल सर, उसमें सर बहुत ज्यादा चला गया फिर खर्चा आउटलायर्स में आने लगे.
That's why we have is whenever we summarize data using statistical theory, that's why there is a role of distribution. So without knowing distribution, we cannot use a particular concept which is fit for, let us say, normal distribution. If data follows logarithmic distribution, so definitely you should use a logarithmic confidence interval, not this normal confidence interval. So you have to see whether your data follows normal distribution. If it doesn't follow normal distribution, we cannot give it.
Or the simplest way, if you want to do the normal, then convert the logarithmic distribution to the normal. That is possible. You convert it and then use it. Both, but
अब इसको आप जो रेमेडी है ये जो वाइड वेरिएशंस हैं इसकी रेमेडी क्या है? धीरे थोड़ा उल्टा बोल रहा है। इसका लॉग ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन का
Yes, sir.
लॉग ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन करोगे तो पूरा स्मूथ हो जाए।
Yes, sir.
उल्टा बोल रहा है इसी डेटा को आप लॉग ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन कर दोगे ना तो बिल्कुल शार्प नॉर्मल कर दोगे।
Then you will give this.
तब ये आपका लाभ हो
Yes, sir. Then it will make sense.
But for us, it is enough even if you don't give standard deviations, fairly nicely it reflects. So you simply give the numbers. As such, I don't have any problem with this thing. For a person like JP Singh, who are hardcore statisticians,
No, sir.
will definitely raise this question: have you tested the normalcy of data? Right? They have all the reason to ask this question. Is the data normal? Is it normally distributed? Solution is not median. Because in cost data, looking at median is not a wise thing. एक आदमी जाके इलाज करा रहा है मेडिसिटी में और एक आदमी इलाज करा रहा है नर्सिंग होम में, सेम बीमारी है। मीडियन वैल्यू का तो कोई मतलब नहीं होगा, इसका डिजीज से कोई संबंध नहीं रहेगा, इसलिए मीडियन की कोशिश करनी भी नहीं। So it depends on the level and brand of the facility. What are they charging? So if you go to a CGHS hospital, they will do your angiography in 70,000 rupees or 36,000 rupees. But if you go to Trehan's hospital, they will charge you 3.5 lakh rupees to do the same angiography. The disease is same, effort is same, it's only hygiene, for which they charge additional 3 lakhs from you, not because of the disease. So there is no logic in doing median. Because the cost is something and pricing of healthcare is something different concept. Pricing is a different thing than the cost.
But in this case, all the tests, everything is done in the hospital itself.
Either hospital or if they have visited private, that is also included. In the past 6 months, whatever the expenditure which was made.
Just one question that was coming in my mind. I might late.
Please.
How you calculated that standard deviation? How you calculated it? So high. So how you did it? Standard deviation, we have some formula or something like that. So
आगे तो यार कंप्यूटर करता है
कंप्यूटर से करवाना सब मैंने SPSS सॉफ्टवेयर लगा
how can this be so
Don't
large?
ask about
More than-
formula. He did it in Excel and SPSS. Now he is showing how computer modeled it. Formula is very simple. There is no different formula for standard deviation. There is only one formula.
Yes, sir.
Sir, there is only one formula for calculating standard
But
deviation.
the
No different ways.
value is so high.
हाँ वो डेटा का बताया ना, प्राइसिंग का मामला है। This is more of pricing.
Sample is collected in public hospital.
Yes,
So direct postage is in public hospital.
yes, government.
चले आगे चले, उनके सवालों के जवाब भी आप ढूंढिएगा।
Yes. There is a system-wise comparison of direct cost of the various comorbidities, system-wise comorbidities. So the total direct cost among cases was maximally reported among those patients who are having respiratory comorbidity, followed by, I think, renal. Yes, followed by renal. Okay, although except for renal and one more was there.
What is cardiovascular?
Dermatology and psychiatry system. Rest all the comorbidity system are having significantly higher direct cost among cases as compared to that of controls. Respiratory में सर उनको continuous वो puff लेना पड़ रहा था और क्या कहते हैं drugs लेनी पड़ रही थी जो कि हमारे actually हॉस्पिटल में वो अवेलेबल नहीं थी, वो बाहर ही से वो परचेस कर रहे थे, तो उसकी वजह से मेडिसिन का कॉस्ट उनका रेस्पिरेटरी का बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ गया।
एक तो कॉस्ट है, वहाँ आपकी तकलीफ थोड़ी बढ़ जाएगी आज, पर एक तो कॉस्ट है, ये आउट ऑफ पॉकेट एक्सपेंस। Cost of care is a bit problematic issue. So basically the easiest thing to do is out of pocket expenses. Are these all out of pocket expenses?
नहीं, including cost of
Government है?
government.
That's why you find
Direct and indirect both.
नहीं, only direct.
हॉस्पिटल में जमा कराया ना पैसे। मैं ये कह रहा हूँ आप इसको आउट ऑफ पॉकेट बोलना चाहिए या कॉस्ट।
हालांकि सर पर्चे का कॉस्ट जस्ट 5 रुपए था, 10
आप तो देखो कॉस्ट में आपने ट्रैवल वगैरह कंसल्टेशन वगैरह सब
सर ये
आउट ऑफ पॉकेट ज्यादा ठीक है।
ट्रैवल आपका
लैंग्वेज मतलब पॉकेट लेके सर कॉस्ट की
ट्रैवल आउट ऑफ पॉकेट में
अभी कैलकुलेट करना पड़ेगा आउट ऑफ पॉकेट जो गवर्नमेंट
आपको
से
ये ट्रैवल वगैरह निकालने पड़ेंगे उसमें।
Question are collected like this, is collected the question like this out of pocket because it is
कोई
public
वापस
sector.
किसी को
So apart from the public cost, then you have to find out what is the public cost and what the person has.
तो फिर कोई आउट ऑफ पॉकेट ही है सारा जो आप दिखा रहे हैं।
इवन वेज लॉस वगैरह
वेज लॉस ट्रैवल
अच्छा ये बताओ इसमें ये पर ईयर है या पर मंथ है?
6 months, हाँ 6 months है सर।
अगले मंथली कॉस्ट पर हम लोग इसमें से यू हैव टू बी कैलकुलेटेड एक्सक्लूड the cost of care that they receive from the hospital. What is the inner care?
जिस गवर्नमेंट हॉस्पिटल ने जो सर्विस प्रोवाइड की है उसका चार्ज नहीं किया है, आपने नोशनल कॉस्ट लगाई है,
वो नंबर आई नहीं वो नहीं कराई सर
ये तो सब आउट ऑफ पॉकेट ही है।
जो पेशेंट ने
जो
पे
खर्चा
किया
कर
हाँ
जो खर्चा कर
आउट ऑफ पॉकेट है ये।
चलो अब बाकी की स्लाइड में दिखा
ठीक है।
इसका सर इंडिविजुअली भी निकाला, वो हमने शो नहीं किया सर, जैसे सीवीएस का अलग से जितना भी कंसल्टेंसी चार्ज या टेस्ट का चार्ज वो सब हमने शो नहीं किया, बहुत ज्यादा हो गया टेबल्स।
धीरेन्द्र कुमार जी बताएंगे और मंगल साहब बताएंगे कॉस्ट के बारे में। तो
हम बता देंगे आपको, एक बार रो डेटा दिखाना, क्लासिफिकेशन कर लेंगे स्टैंडर्ड उधर थोड़ा सा भी एनालिसिस करना पड़ेगा।
This is multiple linear regression model on direct or small cases, and except for this one, use of tobacco, rest all of having were significant contributors in estimation of the direct cost, with duration of diabetes mellitus was having highest contribution. With every increase in 1 year of diabetes, 13.2 unit increase in direct cost was reported.
भैया हमको एक बात मुझे नहीं प्रश्न थे पर पूछना, ये जो मैरिटल स्टेट मैरिड इसमें क्या ये तो डिस्क्रीट डेटा है, डिस्क्रीट में क्या लीनियर मॉडल बना है, या तो मेल है या फीमेल है, इसमें कोई क्वांटिटी का क्या है, रिलीजन भी जेंडर भी आदमी है महिला है, तो इसमें लीनियर तो कंटिन्यूअस डेटा के लिए इट इज नॉट ए कंटिन्यूअस डेटा। what you want to show कोएफिशिएंट किस बात का, किससे निकाला है कोएफिशिएंट? अरे कॉस्ट से निकाला है।
लीनियर लगाया सर, क्योंकि डिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल इन्होंने कॉस्ट लिया है सर, कंटिन्यूअस वेरिएबल, इंडिपेंडेंट तो कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ बोथ हो सकता है।
अच्छा।
इनको एक्सप्लेन ये करना चाहिए कि जैसे ये मैरिटल स्टेटस दिए, तो इन कंपैरिजन विद नॉन मैरिड, मैरिटल में इतना कॉस्ट रिड्यूस हो जाएगा, इतना इस तरह से।
वो लेकिन वो होना चाहिए लॉजिक
लॉजिक तो सर डिपेंडेंट होता है ना, डिपेंडेंट तो कंटिन्यूअस वेरिएबल
सर
तो लगेगा रिग्रेशन ही, लीनियर रिग्रेशन ही लगेगा। हाँ
कॉस्ट को कैटेगराइज करने तो लग सकता है।
हाँ, तब लगेगा लॉजिक, लॉजिस्टिक अगर आप कह रहे हैं ना, जैसे कॉस्ट को ही दो कैटेगरी में कर देगा रेंजो, लेकिन अगर इन्होंने कॉस्ट को एज इट इज रखा हुआ है, अगर आपने कंटिन्यूअस लिया है तो लगेगा तो लीनियर ही। लेकिन आपको थोड़ा ये बहुत जरूरी है, इसलिए मैं स्टैटिस्टिकल एनालिसिस, स्पेशली रिग्रेशन एनालिसिस, to make the sense of regression analysis, if you read the book written by Douglas Yertman, so he has given means he has stressed that if you want to apply regression analysis on medical data generated from let us say medicine field, first you should check the assumption of linear regression. If you don't check the assumption of regression equation, and if you directly apply, because you have a variable, this continuous dependent and independent, so many variables, that will not make any sense. पहले आपको उसके assumptions fulfill करने चाहिए। Regression equation के जो assumptions हैं, you know what are the,
सर आपको लिखवाया था, ये याद नहीं है बट यस लिखवाया था।
तो वो जब आप चेक करके लगाएंगे ना तब मीनिंग बनाता है। अदरवाइज उन्होंने एग्जांपल दिए हैं, चाहे मार्टिन ब्लैंड की बुक आप पढ़िए, चाहे डगलस यर्टमैन की, तो उन्होंने स्पेसिफिक एग्जांपल्स दिए कैसे लोग रॉन्गली इंटरप्रेट कर देते हैं अगर ये सब नहीं देख रहे हैं। आप मतलब कोई भी एनी पर्सन, मैं भी अगर अप्लाई करूं विदाउट चेकिंग assumption, तो जो रिजल्ट आएगा उस पे मेरे को कॉन्फिडेंस नहीं होगा। लेकिन अगर assumptions मैंने एस्टेब्लिश कर दिए, देन आई विल, जो मैं बोल रहा हूँ कि ये इतना टाइम्स बढ़ जाएगा या इतना रिड्यूस होगा, इतना इंक्रीज हो जाएगा,
फर्स्ट अजम्पशन तो नॉर्मली
रिग्रेशन का एक assumption है कि फॉर एवरी इंडिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल your dependent variable should be normally distributed for every independent variable। जैसे आपने इक्वेशन में 10 और 8 इंडिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल लिया, तो हर वेरिएबल के लिए आपका जो कॉस्ट है डिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल वो नॉर्मली डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड, तब रिग्रेशन इक्वेशन सेंस बनाएगा, अदरवाइज नहीं बनाएगा। एक बार चेक कर लीजिए, बहुत इजी है चेक करना। नॉर्मेलिटी को चेक करने के लिए एसपीएसएस जब यूज करेंगे तो सेपिरो विल टेस्ट वो लगा के
सर वो सब वैसे हमने स्टैटिस्टिक्स
एक बार आप देख
हमारे जो
लीजिए।
डिपार्टमेंट वाला उससे भी हेल्प ली गई,
फाइन करना है ना।
फिर से एक बार
मुझे अभी भी इसका इंटरप्रिटेशन समझ में नहीं
सर इसमें
मुझे
ये
इसका
है
इंटरप्रिटेशन होता है उसके लिए
कि सर जैसे ये मैरिज
जी, आप
जी सर, जी सर, जी सर, मुझे एक बार वो लेना पड़ेगा सर।
इसमें पहले भी मुझे दिखाई
सर
थी।
जी सर, तो वो यहाँ पे क्या कुछ रखो है सर,
क्या चीज
जरा सा, क्योंकि सर को वो मैं क्वेश्चन लिख के ना, आपका है जो इक्वेशन है आपका कॉस्ट को डिपेंडेंट
नहीं, मैं ये चाह रहा हूँ कि आप इसका इंटरप्रिटेशन बताओ।
जी सर, ये है जैसे ये इन्होंने लिया
कोएफिशिएंट आपने दिया
जी सर,
ये सब मतलब क्या है ये?
जी सर, ये इसका मीनिंग ये है कि सर जब मैं फॉर एग्जांपल जो आपने एग्जांपल लिया था मैरिटल स्टेटस, तो अगर मैरिटल स्टेटस में सर इन्होंने दो कैटेगरी बनाया, जो नॉन अनमैरिड है सर इसको मान लीजिए इन्होंने 0 दे दिया कोड रिलेशनल एनालिसिस में, और मैरिड को इन्होंने कोड दिया 1। अब अगर ये पॉइंट -5.5 है, इसका मीनिंग है अनमैरिड से जो मैरिड में अगर इन्होंने ऐसे लिया है तो अनमैरिड को 0 और मैरिड को 1।
मैरिड का निकला अनमैरिड के कंपैरिजन,
वही चीज है ना। तो सर अनमैरिड को इन्होंने 0 लिया, अगर मैं इसका मीनिंग है कि मैरिड में जो सर ये कॉस्ट है ये रिड्यूस हो जाएगा -5.5 जो भी इनका यूनिट है कॉस्ट का। ये
नहीं इसका बीटा इज एब्सोल्यूट है, बीटा का इंटरप्रिटेशन करना मैं ट्राई करता हूं। बीटा इज ऑलवेज एक्सप्लेन विद रेफरेंस टू कैटेगरी अदर कैटेगरी। अगर इसमें जैसे नॉन मैरिड है तो ये करें अगर ₹1 कॉस्ट बढ़ता है तो जो मैरिड है पॉइंट माइनस है ना, तो उसका -50 पैसे कम हो। चेंज वेरिएबिलिटी, अगर 1 यूनिट वेरिएबिलिटी होती है,
एक यूनिट सर यहाँ तो सब क्वेश्चन जो पूछा मैरिड अनमैरिड के सेंस
नहीं कॉस्ट तो डिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल है ना। जैसे अगर 1 यूनिट वेरिएबल
यहाँ यूनिट नहीं है सर, मेरिट में या तो अनमेरिट या मेरिट।
मैं डिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल की बात बता रहा हूँ भैया। कॉस्ट 12 रुपया, 12 से 14 रुपया, 13 रुपया, अगर 1 रुपया बढ़ता है तो
अरे सर उल्टा इंटरप्रेट मत करिए। इंटरप्रिटेशन है बीटा का, मैं बताता हूँ आपको इंटरप्रिटेशन करें। बीटा tells us if we change independent unit by one unit, how much change on an average will occur in the dependent variable. ये इंटरप्रिटेशन बीटा। If you change independent variable by unit change, per unit change, how much change on an average will be there in dependent variable?
0.55
Reduce इसका ये भी। हाँ हाँ, ये रुपीज में इनके अकॉर्डिंग सर केवल इतना ही रिडक्शन होगा बस सर, माइनस 5.5 रुपीज रिडक्शन हो जाएगा।
मेरिट में पैसे आधे लगे।
आधे नहीं
नहीं सर, यहाँ पे
एब्सोल्यूट है,
यहाँ पे एब्सोल्यूट है सर, ये तो एब्सोल्यूट है। परसेंट
नॉट
इन्होंने आपने एक्चुअल रुपीज दिए है ना, डिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल एक्चुअल इसमें रुपए कम 5 रुपीज कम हो जाएगा।
सर मैं सर एक्सप्लेन करने का कोशिश करूँ।
बहुत
सर अगर मान लीजिए 12 रुपया टोटल लग रहा है ना इन सब चीजों को लेते हुए, अगर हम केवल मैरिटल स्टेटस में मैरिड को ले तो उसका 11 रुपए 45 पैसे लगे।
तो इसका लॉजिक क्या है यार ये बताने में?
Logic to sir.
Suppose there are 12 persons, like 12 male, female, whatever. Married and unmarried, if we see, and if we see the coefficient, if a person is getting married, comparatively to unmarried, so there will be less minus 0.55 reducing for the diabetes. If a person is getting married comparative to unmarried, so the cost for that comorbidity is going to reduce by this person, because that if someone is going to marry, that married person is getting some support comparative to unmarried.
अच्छा मुझे एक बात बताओ, मैं समझूंगा तुम्हारी बात।
Yes, yes.
वो बात आपको समझ लूंगा। To be work on the concept of per unit change.
per unit change
Is associated with the change in the outcome.
we have
The value of it. Now, per unit change here is 1 rupee. ठीक है?
पर यूनिट चेंज इन 1 रुपया ये तो
independent variable
इंडिपेंडेंट के साथ
independent
ऐसे नहीं कर सकते सर, ऐसे इंटरप्रिटेशन नहीं कर सकते।
सर ये इस तरह का इक्वेशन है।
मैं ये कह रहा हूँ आप पुरानी टेबल पे चलिए।
वही सर जी सर, आप पुराने पे चले
क्या है? अपनी क्या? अब वहाँ जगह कंट्रोल इसमें डायरेक्ट कॉस्ट आ रही है 12,719 रुपया। ये मैरिड आदमी में 6,000 रुपया कम
नहीं
मेरा बात ये है तो वो कोविड है
नहीं वो मीन दिया है कि आपका
ये मीन ये है ना
नहीं ही मीन्स जेंडर वाइज और
जेंडर का क्या मीन निकाले हो
नहीं इसका एक्सपेंडिचर का मीन
बिजनेस का
नेक्स्ट स्लाइड पे आइए।
वो मीन
ये चीज
सर इस तरह से देखिए सर, ये होगा देन जेंडर है, जेंडर के साथ इनका है तो ये हो रहा है माइनस 0.50 इनटू जेंडर, फिर है सर माइनस 0.34 इनटू रिलीजन, लाइक दिस सर। ये है, ये पूरा इक्वेशन बनेगा सर। अब इसका जो इंटरप्रिटेशन, चूंकि ये कॉन्टिन्यूअस वेरिएबल है सर, अब इसका इंटरप्रिटेशन ये है कि इफ वी चेंज जेंडर बाय 1 यूनिट, जेंडर बाय 1 यूनिट का मीनिंग ये है कि अगर अनमैरिड से मैरिड, इफ वी चेंज द मैरिटल
एक
स्टेटस।
बार बोलने दीजिए, एक बार इनको बोलने दीजिए। आप बोलिए सर, आप बोलिए, आप प्लीज कैरी ऑन।
जेंडर से सर कंफ्यूज कीजिए एज कंपेयर टू फीमेल द
Male, female.
एक्सपेंडिचर
मैरिटल स्टेटस
इट्स अ कैटेगरी
अरे सॉरी जेंडर, सॉरी मेल फीमेल सर। तो इन कंपैरिजन विद फीमेल, अगर फीमेल को 0 लिया, फीमेल टू मेल, द कॉस्ट विल रिड्यूस बाय 0.50 रुपीस ओनली। इसका ये
लेकिन वो होगा कांस्टेंट के बाद में कांस्टेंट
हाँ, और लोग नहीं, और सभी इंडिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल को सर वो जो बोला जाता है कि टेकिंग इट एज अ कांस्टेंट। कांस्टेंट मतलब सबको उसके एवरेज वैल्यू पे पुट किया जाता है जो भी है।
एक ही मेरे को ये बता दो आपको समझ में आ रहा है ये सही है।
Negative
मैं
वाले-
किसी को समझ गया, पूछ रहा हूँ आपसे।
Positive वाले increase करो, that's it.
मेरे हिसाब से तो अगर जैसे 0.50 इसमें लिखा है नंबर 2 0.50 है, वो मान लीजिए 12,000 रुपया खर्चा हो रहा है, मेरे हिसाब से वो फिर उसमें आधा ही 6,000 रुपये खर्च।
नहीं ऐसा नहीं
सर,
है।
मेरे हिसाब से ऐसा
आपने कुछ नहीं किया।
इस तरीके से
जैसा जेपी सिंह सर ने समझा ना,
ये जो ये बताया ना बहुत
अच्छा, मुझे तो इसका ये बताओ ना आए धीरेन्द्र,
हाँ
मुझको ये समझो इसमें कॉस्ट कैलकुलेशन में इसके इम्प्लीकेशन क्या ये समझा दो मुझको।
कॉस्ट कैलकुलेशन के
इसके इम्प्लीकेशन क्या है,
ये सारे जो
टोटल वैल्यू पर क्या चेंज हुआ वो बताओ मुझे।
एक्चुअली में सर कॉस्ट के हिसाब से जो है आई इसमें डजंट सीम वेरी
उस तरीके से तो
मुझे तो ये बता दो कॉस्ट की एब्सोल्यूट वैल्यू पर इस कोफिशिएंट से क्या मुझको समझना चाहिए, मैं वो जानना चाहिए। आप सीमा जी आप बताओ, आपने बहुत डेटा किया है।
ये जो -0.50 है टोटल सेल्स का -0.50 परसेंटेज निकालेंगे तो जैसे 12 लाख से 50% रेडी खुलता है।
मैं यही कह रहा हूँ इस कोफिशिएंट का मतलब ये है।
आप देखिए इसमें ये है हमारा जो दूसरा यूज इसका एक और है इसमें क्या हो रहा है अनस्टेबलाइज्ड जो
1 रुपए पे 50 पैसे कम हो जाते हैं तो 12,000 में कितने कम हो गए? 6,000। मैं ये कह रहा हूँ सीमा जो कह रही है ये बीटा का काम इसने बहुत किया है। ये वो स्टैंडर्ड है वो जो आप हमारे यहाँ नहीं है। This much of value. राइट एग्जैक्टली
उसका डिफरेंस लेकिन उसमें सर
ये जेपी से बता रहे हैं वो और ये सही नहीं बता। टोटल वैल्यू पर क्या चेंज होगा 0.5 का, वो होगा कि आधी हो जाएगी। हाँ इसका मीनिंग ये होना चाहिए कोफिशिएंट
आधी कैसे हो जाएगी? हो जाएगी सर, आपका नहीं है सर, ऐसा नहीं है सर, ऐसा नहीं लगता सर, ये I don't think so,
मैंने आई हैव नेवर यूज्ड दिस कोफिशिएंट इसलिए मैं जानता हूं, मैं समझ नहीं
तब होगा जब सिर्फ एक फैक्टर है a प्लस ओनली चेंज, पर हमारे पास बीटा 1 x1 बीटा 2 x2 बहुत सारे हैं।
ये सारी
अगर बाकी सब कॉन्सेप्ट सिर्फ एक ही कॉन्सेप्ट करेंगे a प्लस बीटा 1 तब ऐसा होगा जो आप कह रहे हैं कि 12 से 6,000 हो जाएगा।
सुनो मेरी बात। अब आपका स्पष्टीकरण ये तो मैं दे सकता हूँ क्या आप सही नहीं बता रहे, ये मैं आपको समझा सकता हूँ। वो ये है ये जो 0.5 यानी हाफ जो रिडक्शन बता रहा है, ये जो एब्सोल्यूट वैल्यू है उसकी हाफ होती है। Against what?
उसको आपने जो
Adjusted against or controlled for all other variables. समझ रहे हैं आप? तो गलत इंटरप्रिटेशन मत करो। उन सबको कंसीडर करते हुए ये होगा। Considering all of them, the cost will reduce among males by 50%.
सर तभी 50% तभी होगा जब ये कोफिशिएंट परसेंट के टर्म, ये अगर परसेंट के टर्म
भाई साहब आपको मैं एक बात बता देता हूँ, coefficients are never more than 1. Do you know this?
yes
Total probability 100%. 1 is equal to 100%.
टेबल में दिखा 13.2
वो गलत है।
0.6 13
वो गलत है।
नहीं ज्यादा है ना सर, ज्यादा है वो तो
वो गलत है तो
नहीं नहीं
अरे नहीं सर,
ये ऐसा हो जाता है
सब कुछ कन्वर्ट करके परसेंट जॉब कह रहे हैं सर, तब होगा अगर मैं सभी को परसेंट के टर्म में कन्वर्ट करूं।
ये भी मेरा क्वेश्चन ये बीटा तो बता दिया ठीक है 50%
इंटरप्रिटेशन बात अलग है, लेकिन 1 से ज्यादा हो सकती है।
लेकिन कांस्टेंट तो अननोन है, कांस्टेंट हो सकता है 2000 है, तो उस 2000 के बाद जो होगा उसमें
नहीं कांस्टेंट वो मीनिंग नहीं होता रिग्रेशन में कांस्टेंट का इनसिग्निफिकेंट होता है ज्यादातर रियल सिचुएशन में। कांस्टेंट केवल ये बताता है जो आपका रिग्रेशन इक्वेशन है वो ओरिजिन से अबव वाई एक्सिस को कट करेगा या बिलो। कांस्टेंट का कोई
significant होता है।
वो
Constant doesn't have any meaning.
सर इसमें एक और ये हो सकता है कि जो आंसर है बीटा कोएफिशिएंट और इनसिग्निफिकेंट
देखे जो इनसिग्निफिकेंट है उसको हटा के अपन वो कॉम्बिनेशन निकाल सकते हैं जो बहुत simple
मैं
सी बात है।
आपसे एक बात समझना चाहता हूँ। जैसे यूज ऑफ टोबैको among diabetic patients, if you do not use tobacco, will expenditures or cost of treatment reduce? मैं जो इसका इंटरप्रिटेशन करना चाह रहा हूँ वो ये है कि अगर मैं दारू नहीं पीऊंगा और मुझको डायबिटीज है तो क्या मेरी ट्रीटमेंट की कॉस्ट कंपेयर टू दोज हु ड्रिंक इज लेस? Can I advocate this don't drink if you have diabetes? Because on account of morbidities, comorbidities, your expenditures will increase. मैं फालतू की बात कर रहा हूँ, ठीक है, लेकिन इसके मुझको इम्प्लीकेशन समझने आना चाहिए इसके टेबल की।
ऐसे तो सब
Increase
Absolute value.
increase हो रही है। अगर आप टोबैको नहीं लोगे तो increase हो जाएगा।
हाँ, इसको मल्टीप्लाई करिए टोटल वैल्यू से।
हम लोग वो एंड में रिजल्ट जब निकालेंगे
हाँ।
तो अपन ये बोलेंगे कि 1 यूनिट विल change will bring 0.50
ये इसका क्या होता है? जेपी ऑब्जर्व्ड वैल्यू और कैलकुलेटेड वैल्यू एंड एस्टिमेटेड बीटा।
जी सर।
उसको मल्टीप्लाई करने से जो वैल्यू आएगी
जी सर।
वो एक्चुअल कॉस्ट होगी उसकी। समझ रहे हैं?
जी सर। जी सर, आप जो कह रहे हैं कोफिशिएंट
हाँ,
को
आपने भी फार्मूले में वही तो लिखा है
टोटल कॉस्ट।
हाँ।
जी सर, टोटल कॉस्ट।
इसकी वैल्यू जब आएगी जब आप इसको मल्टीप्लाई करोगे जो ऑब्जर्व्ड वैल्यू है बीटा को से मल्टीप्लाई करोगे तो एग्जैक्ट वो वैल्यू आएगी जो बीटा इंडिकेट। मतलब अगर 0.50 है तो इसका मतलब है कि 12,000 अगर लग रहा है तो 6,000 है।
अगर सर अपन A
लेकिन उसका कॉस्ट पे कैसे implication
हाँ, देखिए हेलो इसमें बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग सवाल।
जी सर।
दूंगा साहब इसमें बहुत जोरों का सवाल पूछा था कि रिलीजन से कैसे कॉस्ट कम होगी?
वो तो मैं उनका कानून बना के
कि रिलीजन से कैसे कम होगी
कॉस्ट
कॉस्ट?
कम हो गई।
तो देखो मैं क्यों सवाल इसमें पूछा है इसलिए मैं आई एम यूजिंग दिस opportunity to share with you the knowledge whatever I have. We need to also really see the biological or cause effectiveness, cause and effect relationship. Right? Religion in any case cannot reduce because it is not biologically linked with the disease. So, हो सकता है कि जेंडर का हो तो जेंडर में एक्सेस अवेलेबिलिटी और जो भी रिकॉल कॉल की प्रॉब्लम होती है पर ऐसा रिलीजन का क्या रिलेशन हो सकता है कि हिंदू में कम खर्चा हो और मुसलमान में ज्यादा?
इनके पास जो डाटा है उसमें इस तरीके से ही आ रहा होगा।
Unless you check for collinearity, you have to really look at the collinearity of all the independent variables with each other. And if you find collinearity, remove those variables and then do this.
आज का भी कम हो जाएगा।
हाँ,
यदि ज्यादा जो चल रहा है कम होएगा शायद सर क्योंकि आपस में एक दूसरे के साथ वो कर रहे हैं
तो collinearity की वजह से होगा।
नहीं मैम सर सब जो बोल रहा है वो बहुत वैलिड सेंस में है। पहले चेक करना चाहिए कि क्या रिलीजन का कोई रिलेशन है भी कि नहीं।
डायबिटीज से है ना?
डायबिटीज से है कि नहीं है। अगर जो रिलेशन हो और सेंस बनाता हो तब तो हम थिंक करें उसको अपने इक्वेशन में लेंगे। अगर रिलीजन कोई सेंस बना नहीं रहा तो इक्वेशन में लेना ही नहीं चाहिए।
ये ऐसा है देखो कि हमारे देश में आबादी बढ़ी, इंडिया की आबादी 3 टाइम्स 4 टाइम्स, हमारा प्रोडक्शन भी 4 टाइम्स हो गया है, वीट प्रोडक्शन। Do you want to say that this population has increased because of increased food production? Do you want to say that? Can you conclude? You can. But nobody will be
Production has increased
willing
because
to accept
production
this.
has increased.
So that potential relationship between the two variables, some evidence, some other relevant observations have been made somewhere, some consistency of such information. If anywhere if this says that the religion, the cost reduces, or the Muslims have lesser access to diabetic care, that may affect because of the poor socioeconomic status, poor access, poor affordability that could be the reason for lower expenditure or cost amount. So we need to really explore this. पर ये PhD के लिए है इतना बहुत है. We can continuously explore this data, but मुझे जब तक इसका एक कोफिशिएंट का इंटीग्रेशन नहीं खास तौर से किसके लिए एजुकेशन, यूज ऑफ टबैको, अल्कोहल, डायबिटीज, कोमॉर्बिडिटीज, इसके नॉन डायबिटीज को जिसको कोई कोमॉर्बिडिटी नहीं है और डायबिटीज जिसमें कोमॉर्बिडिटी है, एक है, दो है, तीन है, क्या है, हाउ डज इट अफेक्ट द कॉस्ट ऑफ डायबिटीज में? समझ रहे हैं? पर रिलीजन, जेंडर, मैरिटल स्टेटस टाइप ऑफ समझना क्या है?
वैसे सर इसमें ये तो निकला है, जैसे वन का तो नहीं आया।
अब आप मुझको इसका मतलब बता दो 7.6 का जो हम लोग बातें कर रहे हैं कोएफिशिएंट कैन ओनली बी 1, तो 7.6 का मतलब बता दो।
7.6 बता नहीं सकते, but it can be more than 1.
नहीं हो सकता।
It can be more than 1.
नहीं सर 7.6 का मेरे हिसाब से
ये coefficient है सर, it
So
can be more.
the cost of like it will be more
नहीं,
like
हमारे को
times
देखो इतनी
more.
जानकारी नहीं है, ये जेबी बता सकता है, धीरज बता सकता है, या सुजाता, ये लोग इस टाइप को जो डील करते रहे हैं।
सर मैं एक एग्जांपल दिलाया हम लोग शायद बेटर
अगर सर बाकी सारे
एग्जांपल बता दीजिए सर, सबसे क्लियर हो
एग्जांपल
डायबिटीज का ट्रीटमेंट का
दो वेरिएबल्स से लेके
13 टाइम्स इंक्रीज हो जाता है।
3 वेरिएबल से ले लेंगे।
13 यूनिट, अगर वो 1 रुपया खर्चा करा तो 2 कोमॉर्बिडिटी बढ़ा, बाकी सब अगर सेम है तो 7.6 खर्चा करेगा। अगर बाकी
7.6 टाइम्स
टाइम्स यूनिट्स मतलब अगर 1 रुपया
तो टाइम
टाइम्स यस सर।
But still not sure whether it's right, whatever you are saying, 7.6 times. That is the meaning of the coefficient.
यस
वो देखिए सर एग्जांपल अब जो बता
अरे
रहे हैं,
कोएफिशिएंट रेशियो होता है, क्या होता है?
रेशियो नहीं होता है।
बता दे क्या होता है? बस हम सीखने के लिए बैठे हैं, बताओ क्या होता है?
वो एग्जांपल देखते हैं सर, उससे क्लियर होएगा मीनिंग। ये एग्जांपल बता रहे हैं, उससे क्लियर होगा।
क्या मैं प्रोफेशनल स्टैटिस्टिक्स वाला आदमी नहीं, मैं तो अपनी एज अ पार्ट ऑफ माय कोर्सेज आई लर्न।
ये है सर मल्टीवेरिएट क्वेश्चन। So dose of thiopentone in mg is equal to this constant minus 0.807 age of a person in years plus 1.814 weight of that patient in kg plus 1.954 height in centimeter. Now they are explaining, sir. The equation shows that increasing age is associated with increased susceptibility to thiopentone. Each year increase in age results in a 0.807 mg decrease in the dose required to induce anesthesia.
आगे नहीं, एक बार आगे का पढ़ना।
मल्टीप्लाई नहीं सर,
एक साल एज बढ़ने पर डिक्रीज हो जाएगा। सिंपल सी
इतना एमजी रिड्यूस होगा
वन मोर थिंग, ये जो आपके वेरिएबल्स है ना, जेंडर, रिलीजन, मैरिटल, ये कैटेगरिकल वेरिएबल
इसमें तो हो नहीं सकता।
तो ये आपने जो रिग्रेशन लगाया है यहाँ, लॉजिस्टिक्स रिग्रेशन जो होता है ना, जिसमें कैटेगरी
लॉजिस्टिक तो डिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल में
यहाँ पे इसलिए
मैं आपकी बात मानने को तैयार हूं।
वही तो मैंने कहा था शुरुआत में।
लॉजिस्टिक
शुरू से ही बात हो रही थी।
No, sir, but other variables भी उन्होंने consider किए ना, इसलिए confusion हुई।
मैडम लॉजिस्टिक तो तभी रहेगा जब डिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल।
मैडम आप सिंपल बताइए कि व्हेन वी अप्लाई लॉजिस्टिक रिग्रेशन, एक एग्जांपल
Categorical, इनका जो variable
लॉजिस्टिक
confusion
रिग्रेशन,
आ
मेरा
रहा
फिर क्वेश्चन ऐड कर दीजिए। लॉजिस्टिक रिग्रेशन इज बेस्ड ऑन डिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल और इंडिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल, किसके बेसिस पर डिसाइड करते हैं मुझे लॉजिस्टिक रिग्रेशन लगाना?
सर
dependent variable।
तो क्या है यहाँ पे डिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल?
कॉस्ट कंटीन्यूअस।
नहीं, मैंने इंडिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल है जो confusion
वहां पे
है।
मत जाइए अभी। Linear regression and logistic regression is decided on the basis of nature of the dependent variable. If dependent variable is continuous and independent variable is combination of all the variable categorical or all the
Or
variable continuous or combination of
Yes.
both. If dependent variable is continuous, equation will be always linear regression. If dependent variable is categorical, then it is logistic regression. Interpretation तो इस यहाँ logistic कैसे लगा?
इंटरप्रिटेशन है इनका, इंडिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल का जो हो रहा है
हाँ।
उसी में ही
तो
जाकर
उसमें अंतर क्या है आप समझिए, उसका इंटरप्रिटेशन का भी मेथड है। We don't recode independent variable. We put independent variable in the equation as it is. For example, if it is age, तो जो ईयर में एज हम ईयर ही रखेंगे उसको, ठीक है। इंटरप्रिटेशन क्या होगा? When we change of the patient age by 1 year, how much change will be occur in the cost? ये और ये कैटेगोरिकल होगा तो कहते हैं कि अगर फीमेल से मेल होगा तो कितना कॉस्ट होगा। तो यहाँ पे सिंपल है, इनकी ये प्रॉब्लम ये जो सर कह रहे हैं, इसमें कई ऐसे वेरिएबल ले लिए गए हैं जिनका रिलीजन है, कोई रिलेशन ही नहीं है, लिटरेचर में नहीं है, तो अभी इनको वो सब रिड्यूस करके जो केवल ऐसे वेरिएबल है जिनका आपको इफेक्ट देखना चाहिए तो सेंस बनाएगा।
एक चीज सर उसके आगे वाले का पढ़ सकते हैं आप, वेट का क्या लिखा हुआ है उसमें वो भी पढ़ दीजिए।
हाँ, वेट का भी
जैसे एज का तो पढ़ा आपने,
एज का पढ़ा, तो वेट क्या हो जाएगा when we increase the weight, if the weight of patient is increased by 1 kg, there will be 1.814 mg dose increase in anesthesia.
उसमें लिखा हुआ है।
चलो आगे चलो।
हालांकि सर वेरिएबल्स में मैंने बाकी सारे सर जो वेरिएबल्स मेरे ढेर सारे आए थे।
भैया ऐसा है जो रेलेवेंट हो ना वो जो रेलेवेंट है ना आपके आउटकम वेरिएबल से, आपका मेन क्या है? डायबिटीज। डायबिटीज से जिन चीजों का संबंध है या जिससे प्रोग्नोसिस चेंज होता है या कोमॉर्बिडिटी होती है या वर्सन होगी, आप खाली उन्हीं के बारे में हमें बताओ। ये फैमिली हमने में क्या करना?
I will suggest you only 8 age instead of gender and this religion. I will means my suggestion. Take you have already data, age data of the patients, case and control both. So take that variable. It will give you more significant.
आप एज लीजिए, आप ऑक्यूपेशन लीजिए, आप टोबैको यूज लीजिए, अल्कोहल लीजिए, ड्यूरेशन ऑफ डायबिटीज लीजिए।
Even BMI if you have.
You must be having BMI.
Yes.
That gives you more significant results. Only means same.
सिग्निफिकेंट तो मालूम नहीं पर रेलेवेंट।
सर एक चीज पूछना चाह रही हूँ कि जिन रीजंस की वजह से हम ऑक्यूपेशन या एजुकेशन ले रहे हैं, उस तरीके से तो फिर अगर मुस्लिम फैमिलीज में देखें जहाँ पे कॉन्जेनाइटल डिजीजेस का ज्यादा होने के चांसेस होते हैं, तो वो भी तो रिलेट कर सकता है अगर किसी स्टडी में हो तो। इफ वी गो इनडायरेक्टली बाय दोस रीजंस, फिर तो रिलीजन भी उतना ही वैलिड है।
तो ऐसा है ना, इसलिए हमने कहा
बिकॉज़
कि आप पहले कोलिनियरिटी चेक, कोलिनियर वेरिएबल्स में से दोनों में से एक लीजिए।
जी सर।
अभी बीआईएस स्कोर भी आया होगा,
दोनों में से फिर एक लीजिए,
जी सर।
ऑलराइट।
क्योंकि वो खाली आपकी टी की वैल्यू को बढ़ा रहे हैं, that is increasing the size of the test value. And if you are increasing the test value, your significance will automatically come. इसलिए अगर इसकी आपको इस एनालिसिस की वैलिडिटी चाहते हैं कि ये वो रिफ्लेक्ट करे जो आप चाह रहे हैं, तो आपको जितने भी कोलिनियर वेरिएबल्स हैं उनको ड्रॉप, आप ड्रॉप करेंगे तब इसकी एफिशिएंसी आएगी। नहीं तो ये सारे टीज ने देखो, ये सारे वो बताती सारे सिग्निफिकेंट बताती। मैं भी 800 लेवल की स्टैटिस्टिक्स 800 लेवल की स्टैटिस्टिक्स करी है मैंने।
मैं सर एक बात बताऊं,
मुझे तो ये मशीन चलाना नहीं आता।
सर मैं इनफैक्ट इन लॉट ऑफ स्टैटिस्टिशियन
Yeah.
in India, there's always a difference between you and others. Other statisticians are bookish statisticians. They just speak what book, but you are the person who practically do it. That's the difference.
तो मेरे को एप्लीकेशन बताओ।
Practically, whereas
कोई
most
चीज़
of the,
सही है,
if I go
कोई
to
चीज़
ISS,
सही है।
if I go
The
to
real
any
thing is that
statistician, because I was dealing, my previous assignment, I was dealing with ISS in certain things, we sort of leave it there. All bookish statisticians, most of the 95%, got the book. But when I asked, fine, this is my experiment, I do it in the field. Nothing. You don't get a lot of experimental, and then Minister of Statistics also such type people are there. So you have a lot of exposure of doing yourself.
तो ये प्रोग्राम सही नहीं बन रहे।
So the main difference is sir has the knowledge of this field. अगर मैं डायबिटीज के बारे में बात कर रहा हूँ, तो यहाँ जो बैठे हैं सबसे ज्यादा नॉलेज है सर के पास, तो सब स्टेप को उससे रिलेट कर सकते हैं। केवल स्टैटिस्टिशियन स्टैटिस्टिक्स बोल रहा है डेटा के ऊपर, जब तक आपको डायबिटीज का नॉलेज नहीं है,
So
तब
how
तक क्या बोलेंगे?
practice नहीं है बस डेटा फील्ड में आपको तो बदल
चलो
anyway
इसका लॉजिक बताना पड़ेगा। हाँ, या हटा दो।
सर इसलिए हटा देना चाहिए क्योंकि रीजन क्या है?
समझ में आ गया नहीं, अब
बेसिकली
समझ में
जो
आ
सर कह रहे
गया।
हैं, आप जो वैसे सर आपने पिछला टेबल दिखाई जो सर बोले थे, अब आप देखिए यहाँ देखेंगे इतना इतना डिफरेंस जो केस कंट्रोल में है, आपने वो सब वेरिएबल तो लिए नहीं। अगर आप एक ऐसा एक एनालिसिस करिएगा सिंपल, जिनको आप मल्टीवेरिएट में ले रहे हैं इंटीग्रेशन में, उनकी वेरिएबल का आप जरा डिफरेंस देख लीजिएगा केस कंट्रोल में है क्या, तो देखिए कितना
आप एक काम करो, आप फर्स्ट टेबल पे चलो, जो गो टू फर्स्ट टेबल
केसेस में लगा है ना
है भाई, फर्स्ट टेबल पर।
पहले के
हाँ, या एज एंड सेक्स डेमोग्राफिक क्या लिखा है तो ना, एज एंड सेक्स डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन बताया ना तुमने ये। अब इसमें कौन कौन से सिग्निफिकेंट आ रहे थे?
इसमें सब ये होता है ऑक्यूपेशन, इनकम, सोशल इकोनॉमिक स्टेटस और फैमिली हिस्ट्री।
बस इसको लगाओ,
बस यही लगाना है आपके पास।
जिसमें डिफरेंस सिग्निफिकेंट आ रहा है उसको लगाइए। फिर आपने देखा कि अल्कोहल कंजम्पशन, टबैको कंजम्पशन, उसमें भी अगर डिफरेंस है उसको भी इंक्लूड कर सकते हो, आप उनको शामिल करिए। फालतू में सारे नहीं, जेंडर वेंडर का दिखाए नहीं,
जेंडर आया नहीं।
तो आपने यार मैच कर दिया तो क्यों आएगा?
एकदम परफेक्ट सर।
पागल हो गए, मैच कर दिया तो क्यों आएगा डिफरेंस? बता मुझे, एज भी इसने मैच कर दी तो क्यों आएगा?
सर बट अमाउंट केसेस में तो अलग
आपने डिजाइन ही ऐसे किया है, डिफरेंस आएगा कैसे?
तो ये कह रहा है सर कि आप केवल केसेस का एनालिसिस कर रहे हो।
उसने जो मैच नहीं किया वो सिग्निफिकेंट आ रहा है, जैसे जेंडर नहीं किया, ये रिलीजन नहीं किया तो उसमें आ रहा है, बाकी तो मैच कर दिए उसने, तो कैसे आएगा? कुछ नहीं आएगा। जब पहले ही आपने डिजाइन में ही बराबर कर दिया दोनों, फर्क तो आएगा नहीं।
बट सर रिग्रेशन एनालिसिस जो लगाएगी वो तो अमाउंट केसेस है ना, केवल अमाउंट केवल केसेस है, तो उसमें जो डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन है सेक्स का या जेंडर का वो तो मतलब डिफरेंट है, हालांकि उसमें कंपैरिजन नहीं किया सर।
सेक्स में अगर कॉस्ट कम होगी तो कोई बायोलॉजिकल फिनोमेना ऐसा नहीं है जिससे कॉस्ट कम हो।
हाँ सर वो सही बात।
उसमें तो जो सोशल डिटरमिनेंट्स हैं, एक्सेस, अवेलेबिलिटी, द वुमेन एम्पावरमेंट और ऐसी कहानियां आएंगी, समझा ना?
जी सर।
पर बीमारी की वजह से नहीं कॉस्ट अलग हो रही है, हम तो बीमारी की बात कर रहे हैं।
जी सर। रिसर्च में तो वही है सर।
रिव्यू भी इंडिकेट करेगा कौन से डे कौन से रिव्यू भी इंडिकेट करेगा सर। तो आपने लिया उसमें से कहीं से रिव्यू में पहले एस्टैब्लिश
लेकिन
नहीं
मेल
हुआ
फीमेल में कॉस्ट
नहीं एस्टैब्लिश किया भाई मेरे को
मेल फीमेल में कॉस्ट क्यों अलग होती है?
फीमेल को डायबिटीज की है लेकिन पेट कैपेसिटी नहीं है आदमी को डायबिटीज होता है।
मैं ये कह रहा हूँ सोशल डिटर्मिनेंट्स की वजह से वुमेन एम्पावरमेंट और जेंडर की वजह से हो सकती है, पर हम तो डायबिटीज की कोमॉर्बिडिटी की बात कर रहे हैं। डायबिटीज महिलाओं में भी ऐसे होती है जैसे पुरुषों में, उनके मैकेनिज्म में कोई फर्क नहीं।
If you want to discuss this issue further, the cost incurred on management of any sickness is a function of the disease as well as a function of the behavior or choices made by the people. And people with different sociocultural characteristics will have different choices and different behaviors when it comes to spending money on their treatment. And therefore, these variables may have a bearing on the expenditures incurred by individuals out of pocket for managing this.
I agree.
Yeah. That's
I
what-
agree. But this first table by
Yes.
we consider only those variables which show statistically significant difference. So this should have gone out otherwise. You have brought in, you have simply increased the size of the test value by increasing all this. I can tell you. So because these are for this study, there is no difference in this.
So for him, when he's doing out of pocket cost analysis, you list
या तो करके दिया हमको एज सेक्स की
independent variables, जो भी आप स्टडी करना चाहते हैं, see what is the cost incurred by those variables, and see whether there is any correlation, linear correlation. अगर linear है तो ठीक है, दोनों linear है तो linear तो then maybe some stepwise correlation, and take only and then also see for co-linearity, and after excluding the variables which are independent, then you compare your cost between these variables.
तो हमारा कहना आपसे ये है जब यहाँ सिग्निफिकेंट नहीं है तो वहाँ इनको आप मॉडल में शामिल
मॉडल में शामिल से पहले ये स्टेप्स करो।
सबसे सिंपल मेथड है जो आपने बताया था लीनियर वाला, जो 20 नंबर टेबल दिखा रहे थे अभी, वो ये टेबल बड़ी टेबल दिखाने से पहले एक छोटी टेबल आती है जो हम वेरिएबल लेते हैं उसकी एवरेज कॉस्ट निकालते हैं। जैसे आपका वेरिएबल अगर जेंडर है तो महिला पुरुष की कॉस्ट एवरेज निकालते हैं।
ये तो मुझे बात
ऐसे डिफरेंट कोड तो वहां से आपको पता चल जाएगा डिफरेंस है या नहीं है, फिर टाइप टू टेस्ट।
चलो भाई अब टाइम खत्म होगा। But you know this exercise that we are doing, so this type of presentation is necessary for learning together.
Yes, yes. It's very
And I'll ask him to proceed further after asking a question from JPC. What are the assumptions of regression?
Sir, the assumption of regression is, sir, for every independent variable, dependent variables should be normally distributed. इनको बस ये चेक करना है.
So one is normal distribution.
Yes.
The variables are normally distributed. That is one. Okay, what's next?
They say that if means for in the independent variables we have a combination of both, means continuous variable can be also there and categorical also. So they say that for each variable means theory is here. जैसे for example जैसे age में मेरे पास 15 से start करके 40 तक थ्योरी तो यहाँ तक बोलता है सर, इतना डेटा ना जो आप बोलते हैं इसलिए सैंपल साइज बहुत ज्यादा होना चाहिए कि हर एज के लिए जो कॉस्ट का डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन है वो ना
सबकी पावर 80 होनी चाहिए। हर वेरिएबल हर एज के लिए पावर 80 होनी चाहिए,
काउंटर के सेंस होना
तब ये कथा होती है। अच्छा और क्या assumption है, एक तो बता दिया
ये सब मेन जो
अरे सुन तो ये एक तो बता दे, तीन है
दो
Polarity जो आप सर एक वो है ये सर जो रिलेशनशिप है ये मल्टी पोलरिटी रिलेशन के लिए बहुत जरूरी है, मल्टी वेरिएबल के लिए कि वी शुड चेक मल्टी पोलरिटी देयर आर
वो तो मेथड है यार, assumption बताओ।
इंडिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल्स के बीच 0.3 लीनियरिटी और
वो सर जो रेजिडुअल है, रेजिडुअल शुड बी आल्सो नॉर्मली डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड। वो दूसरा रिलेशन
ये जो बोल रहा है सेकंड नंबर
क्या
there is a linearity that the independent variable is and the dependent variable are linearly associated.
Yes, sir.
There is a linear relation.
Yes, sir.
दूसरा ये है. अब तीसरा बताओ, मैं जब मानूंगा तुम देखो.
अरे सर सबने बोला फर्स्ट हो गया, फर्स्ट हो गया नॉर्मेलिटी फॉर एवरी इंडिपेंडेंट, देयर शुड बी
लिनियरिटी हो गया, लिनियरिटी हो गया, तीसरा बताओ.
रेजिडुअल शुड बी नॉर्मली कंस्टिट्यूटेड विद द सेम.
अगर ये नॉर्मल है वो भी नॉर्मल.
रेजिडुअल को नॉर्मल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन होना चाहिए. रेजिडुअल शुड बी नॉर्मल.
रेजिडुअल इज आल्सो नॉर्मल.
यस सर, नॉर्मल डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड.
पर वो असम्पशन जरूरी है.
जी सर.
थर्ड असम्पशन बहुत जरूरी है.
वेरिएशन से रिलेटेड हो सकता है. कैन बी दैट द वेरिएशन शुड बी अंडर कंट्रोल.
देखो मैं तुमसे कहानियां नहीं हम आज के
डायरेक्ट एग्जाम से पूछ रहे सर.
रिग्रेशन एनालिसिस के तीन assumptions. One is normal distribution. Second is linearity. Third is the independent variables in the equation model have additive effect. आप देखो दोस्तों उधर मॉडल लगा है सारा प्लस प्लस होता है. They are not multiplicative. They are all additive. They add up together. अगर आप उसका टोटल इफेक्ट निकालना है ना, सबको ऐड अप करो. वो कंबाइंड इफेक्ट वापस वैसा ही आ जाएगा जो रिग्रेशन में पहला था. It will come the same as unadjusted. ये सारा जोड़ दोगे ना इक्वेशन के उस साइड को, तो वो जो अनएडजस्टेड जो आपने शुरू में निकाला था उतना ही आएगा. Because you have removed again control.
एडिटिव प्रोडक्ट.
हाँ ऐसे PhD नहीं किया.
सर जॉन हॉपकिंस का डिफरेंस तो है.
नहीं वहाँ का भी नहीं बताया.
अच्छा
कुछ नहीं. This you learn with experience. चलिए भैया आगे हो गया. अबे फालतू किसी से हटा हो यार. हम किसी से रखवा. ठीक है
सर, ये पर्टिकुलर डिजीज के रेस्पेक्ट में आपने कहा था ना 4-5
हमें
इंपॉर्टेंट
ऐसी सारी टेबल नहीं चाहिए.
ये हाइपरटेंशन
मुझे आपको इम्प्लीकेशन बताने पड़ेंगे अगर ये सारी टेबल दिखाना चाहते हो आप. हाइपरटेंशन के लिए अलर्ट, उसके लिए अलर्ट.
इंटरप्रिटेशन में लिखा रहेगा ना टेबल के इंटरप्रिटेशन.
इसलिए तो मैं कह रहा हूँ.
नेक्स्ट
सर
सर,
एक मिनट वापस चलिए. अभी ये जो अच्छा इनका सब डिसीजेस का अलग आ रहा है.
ये डिजीज का हाइपरटेंशन के लिए पर्टिकुलरली
अब मॉर्बिडिटी कहाँ है तुम्हारी? वो मॉर्बिडिटी
इसमें सर नहीं है कोमोर्बिडिटी के रेस्पेक्ट में.
ये पाई स्क्वायर है या आर स्क्वायर है?
आर स्क्वायर से ये मैडम पर्टिकुलरली इसके लिए केवल डायबिटीज विद हाइपरटेंशन के रेस्पेक्ट में.
मेरे ख्याल में यू लिमिट टू 3-4 फैक्टर्स.
ठीक है सर.
बट ये इलॉजिकल लगता है.
ठीक है.
ये वही लगता है फूड प्रोडक्शन एंड पॉपुलेशन इंक्रीज. तो साइंटिस्ट लोग
गार्बेज आउट.
क्योंकि वैल्यू सब के सिग्निफिकेंट आगे तेरी बात
There's a problem. सेंस नहीं बना रहा है. 3.5 इतने रुपीस का कम हो जाएगा, एक बढ़ जाएगा, तो सेंस नहीं बना.
आप तो कॉस्ट बाइनरी दे दो ना. इतने वेरी वेल स्क्वायर वो सफिशिएंट है. देखा तो सिग्निफिकेंटली है बस. रिग्रेशन लगाने की जरूरत नहीं है. ये जो आपकी कैटेगरी जो ले रहे हैं ना उसमें बता दीजिए.
वो भी किया है इन्होंने अलग अलग
ये सप्लीमेंट्री फाइल में रखा हुआ सर.
चलिए आगे बढ़ाएं.
दिस इज विद रिस्पेक्ट टू द
सारे सिग्निफिकेंट
नहीं
टाइम
सर, इसमें तो बहुत कम हो गए. एक ही है इसमें सिग्निफिकेंट टाइप ऑफ फैमिली.
नहीं पी वैल्यू का कोई मायना नहीं है. अब कांस्टेंट भी आ रहा है ना तेरा 0.01
जी.
उसकी पी वैल्यू में 0.01 आ रही है. इसका क्या मायना है? पी वैल्यू का कोई मायना नहीं unless you are able to show me the direction. तो टी का साइज बढ़ गया इसलिए वो आ रहा है. टी का साइज इसलिए बढ़ गया कि तूने सबको मिला दिया.
कॉन्फिडेंस
या तो कॉन्फिडेंस इंटरवल पता.
जी सर.
तो हमें डायरेक्शन नजर आए, इसलिए आप ज्यादा मत जाओ इसका स्टैट हर का आप मत बताओ हमको, हर मॉर्निंग हम तो लेट अस बी इग्नोरेंट अबाउट एवरी सिंगल मार्केटिंग व्हाट द कॉस्ट। आपने एक बार बता दिया 1 है 2 है 3 है 4 है, उसी पॉजिटिव हो बस, दिस इज सफिशिएंट फॉर अस। क्योंकि ये फिर अनइंटरप्रेटेबल होगा
सर ये हटा देना फिर कैटरेक्ट के रेस्पेक्ट में या डेंटल
अभी अभी अरूप ने बहुत बढ़िया बात धीरे से बोला, अरूप ने बहुत अच्छी बात
सैंपल में रिड्यूस हो गया पर्टिकुलर डिजीज।
अभी तो दिखाएगा सीकेडी का, उसमें तो 4 ही मरीज उसने क्या सैंपल है। इसलिए वही बताओ जो सुहाता हुआ साइंस में स्टैटिस्टिक्स की ब्यूटी यही है, तभी तो साइंटिस्ट स्टैटिस्टिक्स यूज करते हैं कि आधा ढका हुआ छोड़ दे, आप इंटरप्रेट करते हो।
वो साइड वाले सुनते
चलिए अपन पर अपने को एक फिनोमेना बताना, इसलिए ये क्या है?
This is the comparison of health seeking behavior between the case and on an
अच्छा
average.
लाइकर्ट स्केल पर क्या है?
नहीं सर, ये तो number of times of visits है।
जो नंबर ऑफ हॉस्पिटल
Roughly 5 times in the past
ठीक
6
है, बहुत
months.
अच्छी टेबल है।
Roughly 2 times in the past
हाँ,
6 months.
जैसे अभी आई थी।
And those who were cases means that 40% they were also visiting private healthcare facilities for treatment of the comorbidities. While among them controls 45% visited other doctor other than the allopathic. 1/4 of the cases also visited for the treatment for some other pathy, homeopathy या आयुर्वेदा, कुछ ना कुछ उन्होंने कंसर्न किया as compared to control जिसमें 9.7% विजिट किया है other pathies के लिए, which shows that शायद मतलब कि किसी तरह इलाज हो जाए। And similarly, 1/4 they also practice some other activities such as yoga among diabetes, while here 15.9, and all these differences were found to be significant.
तो आप बुरा था, ये काम करो, आप ये सारी जितनी भी इंटरव्यूज लोग 2 डिजिट तक रहे, आपने कुछ 3 डिजिट कर रखा है, किसी में 2 डिजिट कर रखे हैं, किसी में 1 डिजिट कर रखा है, या तो सबका 1 डिजिट या सबके 2 डिजिट कर दो, या सबके 3 डिजिट।
ये पी वैल्यू का तो रखो, 2 इंच काम चलेगा।
हाँ, पूरी में तो लगाना पड़ेगा कम से कम 2 पर बाकी सब में अभी जैसे यूनिफॉर्म नहीं है ना, जो स्टैंडर्ड डिविएशन आपने लिखे हैं, तो किसी का 1 2 वैल्यू लिखी, 2 डिजिट हो रहे हैं, किसी का 3 डिजिट हो रहे हैं, ठीक है, का स्क्वायर वैल्यू।
सर ये t oblique price है, ये t वैल्यू नहीं किया है, इनमें प्राइस पैसा नहीं है फॉर द कंटीन्यूअस वैल्यू।
वो मीन है आगे,
कहाँ लिख रहा मीन है?
ऊपर में मीन है नहीं,
कहाँ लिख रहा है तो where it is written? नहीं तो आप ज्ञानी हो इसलिए समझ रहे हो, तो कहाँ लिखा हुआ मीन?
नंबर परसेंटेज।
हाँ तो मीन नंबर ऑफ विजिट्स ये तो आप उल्टा पढ़ रहे हो ना, टी लगाया है इसलिए मीन होगा।
ठीक है सर, करेक्ट।
चल आगे चलिए जा रहा है।
बस इतना ही है।
आपको 20 मिनट 25 मिनट 2 घंटे हो गए।
I also thank him that he has
असली सेशन तो बच गया ना।
हाँ बोलिए, अबे अवश्य कराओ।
अब बंद करो, तुम बताओ क्या।
The present study tells us about the association of diabetes with various comorbidities. It had provided quality of life scores among diabetic patients as compared to non-diabetics, as well as in different comorbid states. Also informed us treatment-seeking behavior, and the direct was inferred in the treatment of diabetic patient. Quality of life scores among diabetic with comorbidity are low. Therefore, screening of diabetes. This is the recommendation for diabetes among greater than 30 years. It is recommended screening for diabetes for different comorbid condition, and regular screening for comorbidity among diabetic patients is also recommended and should be a part of the
अरे
national.
बताओ ये थर्ड सेंटेंस में, थर्ड बुलेट में और फोर्थ बुलेट में क्या फर्क है? ऊपर से 3 बुलेट में और फोर्थ बुलेट में क्या फर्क है स्टेटमेंट्स में?
इसमें सर recommend किया गया है, जो भी हमारा रिजल्ट निकला है उसका recommendation है।
नहीं, आपने क्वालिफाई किया कि क्वालिटी स्कोर्स आर लो, तो आपने उसमें क्यों नहीं लिखा है the treatment seeks behavior, the cost is high? You write that.
ठीक है सर, noted.
You should qualify it. You are concluding now.
जी।
प्रोवाइड कर रही तो
Cost
मैं
of
क्या
solve
करूँ?
to be
प्रोवाइड
higher.
कर रही हूँ।
सर समझ
क्वालिटी स्कोर्स दोबारा आ गया, दोबारा आ गया क्वालिटी। दूसरी लाइन, दूसरी पॉइंट आ गया क्वालिटी, फिर चौथा पे क्वालिटी। आपने एक बार में क्यों नहीं खत्म कर दी सारी बात क्वालिटी? एंड क्वालिफाई आप लिखिए कंक्लूजन में ऑन एन एवरेज कितनी कोमॉर्बिडिटी देखी गई डायबिटिक पेशेंट्स में, सबकी तो लिखोगे ना
जी।
okay. On an average we observed 3.6 comorbidities among the cases of diabetes diagnosed in the last 6 months. One is two. Second statement, the commonest comorbidity was this, followed by this, by this, by this, by this. Limit only up to 4 or 5. आपको ये नहीं बताना है कि क्या
डेंटल
डेंटल फंगल जोड़, ठीक है? फिर आप ये बताइए there is an increased cost of treatment. The health seeking behavior is this and this. The quality of life is affected. This and this. ऐसा बताओ, ये conclusion है क्या? There is not conclusion.
There were certain limitations in the study. The proposed study was done on patient attending the tertiary hospital and therefore would have an entire external value. Being a case control study, the assessment was based on patient reporting, medical examination and record, and therefore had certain limitations. Also to conclusively assess the the status of temporality, better if we could go for a prospective study, which was not feasible in this particular setting. That's it from my side. These all are the references.
तो क्या लिमिटेशन क्या हुई?
लिमिटेशन में सर यही था कि भाई टर्शियरी केयर हॉस्पिटल है, हॉस्पिटल बेस हमने निकाला है, जो भी डेटा निकाला है, कम्युनिटी बेस लगाने पर इज लेस लाइकली कि एग्जैक्टली
स्टडी की इसीलिए है कि ये सर डायबिटीज के कम्युनिटी में तो कहाँ है, अब आप एग्जामिन करो तो मिलेंगे।
वो बहुत डिफिकल्ट था।
तो केस कंट्रोल स्टडी, our purpose was not diabetes, our purpose was comorbid. That is the uniqueness of the system. It's not done very frequently in the world. I hope you are the first to do this comorbidity study here. Others might have casually reported comorbidity, but this study is exclusively focused on comorbidity. So you must take this opportunity to report the frequency of comorbidity in diabetic patients. Then you should explain the implications of comorbidity. One is cost, the other is prognosis. Okay. Then you should go for what is, you can go to the private sector as high as 40%. Out of 167 or 64 diabetic patients, 40% went to the private sector, but also went to the government, public sector. And the polypathy that has been used by like yoga or Ayurveda, whatsoever, all this should come. Now, when you talk of the limitations, being a case control, the assessment was based on patient report, medical examination and records, therefore has certain limitations. What are those certain limitations?
सर जैसे हमारे को रिकॉल बायस भाई केस कंट्रोल
तो मेरे को क्या मालूम है, बताओ ना, लिखो। हमको क्या मालूम क्या हो गया, क्या है वो सर्टेन लिमिटेशन। आई वांट ऑल दोस लिमिटेशंस मस्ट बी मेंशन्ड, डिस्क्राइब्ड रादर, नॉट बुलेट बट डिस्क्राइब्ड। और क्या हो सकता है? What is the other limitation that you should explain? One is recall bias or information bias, right? The other could be selection bias. You are already committing that this is a tertiary care hospital, so there is automatically selection bias. They are not the true representative, very likely, that what is happening in the community. Somebody told them you have diabetes, go to that hospital. So they are all referred patients. There is a selection. What else we have? What are the other limitations? I hope and I assume you have not verified the diagnosis. You haven't gone for active diagnosis of the disease. आपने उस केस रिपोर्ट में जो लिखा है, आपने थोड़ी किया ब्लड शुगर या मैं ये किया, ये तो मैं कह रहा हूँ इन्वेस्टिगेटर ने डायग्नोज नहीं किया, पेशेंट रिकॉर्ड में क्या लिखा है वो है, और जरूरी नहीं है कि वो सही हो। तो बहुत महात्मा डॉक्टर बने हुए हैं, वो कुछ भी डायग्नोसिस कर सकते हैं। तो आपने खुद ने वेरिफिकेशन नहीं किया, आपने खाली केस रिकॉर्ड से देखा है। तो ये भी एक जो है ना मिसक्लासिफिकेशन, वो भी एक इशू आ सकता है, पर इतना इम्पोर्टेंट नहीं है इसमें, बिकॉज यू वर लुकिंग एट द हॉस्पिटल रिकॉर्ड्स। So the likelihood of misclassification is minimum. I want you to write all this.
Hospital record नहीं देखने वाला because we admitted patients from
The patient है उनके पास जो रिकॉर्ड है,
well, the patient had record.
Patient health records.
patient है उनके पास।
So that could be the same hospital or maybe from some other service provider.
नहीं सर, तो जो मतलब कि लैब रिपोर्ट है उसमें हमारे यहाँ से भले वो और जगह से भी करा के ले आए, वो दैट्स अ डिफरेंट इशू, बट हमारे यहाँ तो होती ही हो।
मैं ये नहीं कह रहा हूँ कि कुछ गलत हुआ है, मैं तो कह रहा हूँ पोटेंशियल
chances of error
लिमिटेशंस। मैं तो वो बात कह रहा हूँ। I'm not saying that there is some problem with that. I'm saying जब आप कह रहे हो ना certain limitations, explain those limitations and how these limitations would not affected by results. अरे लिमिटेशन बताने से काम नहीं चलेगा, ये भी बताना पड़ेगा कि लिमिटेशन का ज्यादा इफेक्ट नहीं है। वो तो है देखो साइंटिफिक एनालिसिस। हमारी बहुत बढ़िया काम किया आपने, मेरी तरफ से इट विल बी द फर्स्ट स्टडी इन इंडिया reporting on comorbidities. I like to use the word wherever you have used odds ratio. I like to use the word risk. Risk of developing cerebrovascular condition or disease is 3 times higher. I want you to use the word risk. Odds ratio is a measure of risk. But saying that odds ratio was 3 doesn't mean much. You have left it to, say, to Anup or to her to interpret what this odds ratio 3.5 means. But to a reader, you have to say this is the risk is 3 times the odds ratio being 3 point so and so. with a confidence interval of this. And this increased risk is significant at this level. I want that statement. बाकी और वो
सर एक क्वेरी किसी ने की थी कि केस कंट्रोल स्टडी ये क्यों है, मतलब केस कंट्रोल स्टडी पर्पस जो है वो उसका जैसे एसोसिएशन फाइंड आउट करने या रिस्क के लिए बेसिकली आइडेंटिफाई करने के लिए होती है, तो वो एक क्वेरी अभी सर चलेगा।
हाँ हम बोलेंगे क्वेश्चन को मैं बता सकता
नहीं सर, क्वेश्चन ये था सर कि इसको सर हम लोग को ऑब्जर्वेशनल एनालिटिकल स्टडी बोलना चाहिए या केस कंट्रोल स्टडी बोलना चाहिए, तो आप उसमें थे नहीं, हम लोग का सही बताएंगे।
both statements are correct. This is observational analytic study. So cohort study is also observational analytic study. Case control study is also observational analytic study. So that is a generic term and this is specific. Why we have done a case control study? You can ask this questions.
To know the risk, by how much high risk is there among the cases with respect to various
तो
cohorts.
केस कंट्रोल क्योंकि आप कोहॉर्ट स्टडी करते हैं ना,
सर उसमें लिमिटेशन का मतलब
क्या लिमिट है?
टाइम ड्यूरेशन, पैसा
और अगर कोहॉर्ट करते तो और क्या होता?
सर और लॉस टू फॉलो
हाँ बताओ ना आप इनको हेल्थ
टाइम ड्यूरेशन बहुत
हाँ बताओ इनको क्या प्रॉब्लम हो जाती है?
बट अगर ऐसा कर पाए तो इट विल बी अ वेरी नाइस स्टडी इफ समबडी इज एबल टू डू दिस।
That can be writing limitation because of the
हाँ ये दो सही बताया।
that can be writing limitation because of the
temporality of cohorting with different values could not be studied.
yes
देखो 3 लाइन या 2.5 लाइन से
पर थोड़ा सा
साइंस नहीं चलती है। I like one paragraph, full paragraph on this statement. आपने केस कंट्रोल स्टडी क्यों की? ये तो ठीक है कोहॉर्ट नहीं कर सकते थे, बहुत लंबा समय लगता है लॉस टू फॉलो, फिर भी आपने क्यों की? व्हाट इज द बेसिक आइडिया बिहाइंड केस कंट्रोल? वैसे ही गुड प्रोफेसर है लेकिन
Rule is sir done for basically rare disease sir. If we want to know if we have already outcome, if we want to know the cause, then we should do case control.
So the case control study is done for rare diseases. So diabetes, though you may claim that there are 6 million cases of diabetes in India, but still in 130 crores or 1,300,000 or 1.3 billion people, this 6 million is a very rare condition. Divide 6 by 130.
you did 300 million.
No. Divide 6 by 1,300 million.
Which is not a
It's a rare condition still. So it qualifies to be designed that way. And we are very limited in our objective in saying so, that we are looking for comorbidities. You already say, you said the power was 80%.
वैसे एक बात है
बिल्कुल सही है।
तो Dr. Mula, my compliments, very nicely done, and almost you have shared with us the findings of your research, and seems that you are ready for your submission. But the purpose of pre-submission is basically to listen to your preparation and where you are, and how we can help you finalize your thesis so that you can submit. From that perspective, I think though you have done a very good job, couple of things if you focus on and have further clarification while you're writing it. Maybe you do not elaborate on that while you're making the presentation. But I'm just pointing out those areas that will further strengthen your work and your argument on your hypothesis and research. One thing that I would like to point out is very clear statement on these four different areas that you want to explore through your research. One primary objective is to study comorbidities among diabetes. Then you also wanted to look at the quality of life, cost of treatment, and treatment seeking behavior. Especially, you did mention and you did describe these terms, but specifically, I think the term comorbidities needs a little more elaboration, clear understanding to the writer that when you look at comorbidities, how you look at it, how you define it. Although you mentioned that it includes the diseases that are listed with diabetes or including the complications of it. But I think when somebody would read your thesis, would like to understand that how you differentiate between the disease conditions which were pre-existing prior to the diagnosis of the diabetes, and that continues as co-conditions, and the conditions that were diagnosed after the diabetes was diagnosed. So some clarity on that description will make it very clear in understanding what we mean by comorbidities. This is one point. The other point that needs a little more elaboration, and I'm sure you do right with this, is the recruitment of your cases and controls. How exactly, so what were your inclusion criteria and exclusion criteria? You did mention that in the presentation, but a little more elaboration on, because what I heard was that patients coming to the outpatient department, the medical outpatient department, who were diagnosed as a case of diabetes within 6 months of the day when we recruited. And we included all consecutive cases of the diabetes. Now, I think we need to explain it further that whether all these cases were, two of these cases included the cases which were diagnosed or reported for the first time, or they were coming as a repeat patient to the outpatient. So, or would you not like to make this distinction? Because to me, it appears that if you make this distinction, that will have implications on your outcome. The patients who are repeat visitors and coming for follow-up may have a different profile of comorbidities than those who have come for the first time with a history of diagnosis of diabetes mellitus in the last 6 months. This clarity will be useful. A little more clarity on the match controls. So on what variables you match your controls? You did mention that you match them on each. Age and gender. So, and when and how these match controls were selected. On the same day, say for example, you recruited one patient today. Case. So did you recruit the control the same day, or how it was done? So that details will help in right now. So this is on the design on the study. Next sample. Second is on sample. Now you based your sample size was estimated using a formula for this control series. And the number that came, then you said that it will be equally divided into cases and controls. Is it the right step, or you must have taken that number of cases and that number of controls? So the formula gives the number that should be equal for both the cases and controls. So the 384 number that came up based on your calculation should have been the equal number of cases. You should have equal number of controls. So please check that. And if you have divided it to half, then what would have happened to your power? This is another concern that I have. The third suggestion is you should mention how you have handled the bias that was discussed, especially the selection bias. And you haven't mentioned anything about how you have mentioned address the issue of conformance and effect modifiers in your analysis plan. So maybe something on that. We have also the other thing is basically a semantic presentation. You know, it's always good if you present your findings based on either on your research question or based on your hypothesis. And I think since you have hypothesis, profile hypothesis, it will be useful if you group your findings and say conclusively whether this particular hypothesis is accepted or rejected. So that will give a clear sense that what are the end results of your research. So these are some suggestions from my side that will improve the presentation and the flow of your
Thank you, sir. Thank you all of you for your questions.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Yes, it was one of the longest presentations and good discussion.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate what you have. It is good analysis. And very good thing is that you must publish what you have done with all these limitations. Then real very useful and new. Thank you. Congratulations. Comments?
Okay. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
Sir,
Yes.
presentation.
Yeah.
The presentation delete something. मतलब ये college